Welcome to Pass the Beat number 4, this time with David Osei. And we've also got Harvey Drums. As usual, add your own flavor to it. Post your video online and tag Urban Science. Use the hashtag #PassTheBeat. Also, we've been putting a list of recommendations on the Google Drive of different software to use, as well as some links to tutorials and all this kind of thing. And if you have any other software suggestions, please do send us so we can share this with other people. We've also started an artist interview series that's going to take place every single Thursday and feature members of Urban Science. Find them live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, we have been updating archive, and you can find many old Cypher sessions for your enjoyment. So that's it. Send us your new versions of Pass the Beat number 4. Very interested in seeing what y'all come up with. Have a good one.
Dans tous les liquides que l'on boit, si le ciel tombe, que la mer monte, ça ne sera que justice. Y'a trop d'oreilles dans les autres actions, frère, l'être humain n'est que caprice.
Welcome to Pass the Beat number 4, this time with David Osei. And we've also got Harvey Drums. As usual, add your own flavor to it. Post your video online and tag Urban Science. Use the hashtag #PassTheBeat. Also, we've been putting a list of recommendations on the Google Drive of different software to use, as well as some links to tutorials and all this kind of thing. And if you have any other software suggestions, please do send us so we can share this with other people. We've also started an artist interview series that's going to take place every single Thursday and feature members of Urban Science. Find them live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, we have been updating archive, and you can find many old Cypher sessions for your enjoyment. So that's it. Send us your new versions of Pass the Beat number 4. Very interested in seeing what y'all come up with. Have a good one.
Dans tous les liquides que l'on boit, si le ciel tombe, que la mer monte, ça ne sera que justice. Y'a trop d'oreilles dans les autres actions, frère, l'être humain n'est que caprice.
Welcome to Pass the Beat number 4, this time with David Osei. And we've also got Harvey Drums.
Bon,
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my very great pleasure to continue with the 12th edition, la 12e édition de notre série d'ateliers, entrevues, The Process. Je vais remercier tout le monde qui a fait un petit don jusqu'à maintenant. On a un link pour faire des dons si tu veux. On a aussi un magasin de merch en ligne si tu veux checker ça. On a aussi fait des grandes mises à jour sur notre channel de YouTube et Mixcloud aussi. Alors, si tu veux regarder des anciens cyphers, il y en a plein à regarder. Et dernièrement, je voulais juste dire qu'on adore l'interaction. We love having questions, so please throw a question down in the comments. If you have one for our guest tonight being Anomaly, of course. In fact, I'll just mention that if you are watching right now, just drop us a comment just to make sure that we're live, because sometimes there are technical issues. So we just want to make sure that it's all running. So, Anomaly. C'est qui Anomaly? Ben, c'est le nom de scène de notre cher ami Nicolas Dupuis. Il est un claviériste, il est un compositeur, un producteur sur un niveau virtuose et avec une technique impeccable. Si tu l'as vu jouer, tu sais exactement de quoi je parle. Et peut-être pour certaines qui ne savent pas, il est un ancien membre de Urban Science. Il a littéralement commencé avec nous quand on a recommencé au Blurry. On a fait notre grande résidence au Blurry. Il était la première partie, en fait, en février 2015. Et pas long après ça, il est devenu membre de Urban Science. Depuis ce temps, since then, he has launched 2 wonderful EPs inspired by his hometown of Montreal, Métropole 1, ben, juste Métropole et Métropole 2. Beaucoup de succès à travers la musique. Il fait beaucoup de tournées à travers le... Ben, pas à présent, mais à travers le monde avec des spectacles sold out. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, chaleureusement, on peut... let's make a warm welcome for Anomalie!
Thanks so much for having me, man. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolute pleasure, real pleasure. We're going to get into, on va aller dans plein de sujets différents avec Anomaly. And I guess I would like to start a little bit. I always like to get a little bit of information on how people started. Comment t'as commencé? In the beginning of your training and all this. I know that at age 4 or 5, you started taking piano lessons with your mom, who I believe is a piano teacher. And then you started taking classical lessons at age 7, from what I've been able to figure out. So tell me a little bit about that, and tell me whether would you play. I know that you play a few other instruments, so maybe you could talk to people about that and how you started that and all that. Let's start with the beginnings of your musical journey.
Right. So I was very fortunate, like you said, to have a piano teacher in my mom. So that was a very, very cool to have at home. So I started playing like naturally with her at home, but I started like studying with an actual proper teacher, because sometimes having a parent as your teacher can be like a little bit problematic. It depends.
Absolutely.
On the relationship, but you know. So I got another teacher at like 7 or 8. Studied like throughout elementary school and high school, and basically during high school did like a bunch of different contests in the classical world, whether it's like on the provincial or national scale. Which was interesting, but I never really liked it. I like the instrument, I like the repertoire, but I did not like that climate specifically.
What about it was not to your tastes?
I felt like, so I was already like a shy person, so like going up to people was something that was kind of difficult, but I was still trying to do it. And I felt that, especially like the higher you went in the like the intensity or like level of the contest, like the colder people would get when you would try to say hi to them, which was like a huge turnoff for me. Whereas, not to say that the whole classical world is like that at all. I was like doing this summer camp called Commencant de Anomalie, which was all about like the classical music world, which is like the total opposite of that. So that's another experience where I thrive in that specific context, but like the specific world of those contests was something that kind of turned me off from that part of music. And then I did rediscover it later on. And then I was also during high school like messing around a little bit with production at home, but very humble beginnings, like GarageBand and having every single meter in the red and a lot of distortion, which was wonderful.
Around what age was this?
That was like I was 15.
Okay, so that's when, is that more or less when you started doing like computer music, or like before that it was all piano, acoustic piano kind of thing? Okay,
exactly. So
Okay.
15 is like a computer music.
Right.
And I also played a bit of clarinet during high school. And then I started exploring. I was already like so doing the computer music stuff, but even before that, like just doing a little bit of composing on the side. And oh shit.
Oh yeah, clarinet in
Wow,
high
that's
school.
right.
That's right.
Amazing.
You knew that some of this stuff was going to come out.
Wow. That's crazy. Wow.
So
Major throwback. That's crazy.
I didn't mean to totally disrupt your story, but
No, it's really okay. That's really funny. Wow. That's huge.
So what high school was this? Tell me a little bit about the clarinet.
That was Collège de
Experience.
Montréal. So there was like a band. So playing like band music with woodwinds and percussion and that sort of thing. You know. So that was fun. But I still like I'm happy that I learned to play the instrument. I did record a little bit of it on one of the tracks on the second EP, but I wouldn't say like I tried to like pick it up again for the EP. But I honestly did not maintain the routine. I preferred focusing on other stuff. But I mean I can sort of play, and if I need to record something, I can like make it work. But I wouldn't say like I'm a player.
Yeah. You own a clarinet, and that's it. Yeah.
I mean, I can like I know the notes. I can resheet music. And I can like apply what I'm writing on other stuff to make it work for the recording. But don't hire me as a clarinet player, please.
Shem G is on the stream, and he says Anomaly clarinet lo-fi tape 2021. So we're waiting for it. We're waiting for it.
Please no. But I really appreciate the request. And yeah, so I was composing a little bit and messing around with jazz on my own, not really knowing what I was doing, but like with discovering the repertoire, reading books, listening to more and more music. And then I decided to take that to the next level, and I went to study jazz performance at Cégep Saint-Laurent. So I did like a 3-year program that I then decided to like extend by another year to do. So you could do like either like a composing concentration or like a performance one. So my last year was like I was like at school half of the time, and then working on doing more computer music for like pitches and stuff, because that was already like kicking off. But anyway, so I went there, studied jazz performance, really got into jazz piano with an amazing teacher in Lorraine Desmarais.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was really, really great. And then so there was the student strike in 2012, which is where I actually started. So that was my first year, and that's where like Anomaly actually started or came from. At this point, like that's like I would guess like those first like 2 years were almost like a separate project. It happened to have the same name that it had now, but I basically like took a huge hiatus and then started the project anew, and then it became what it is now. So like the start of like what it led to as it is now was like 2016, if you will, but I started experimenting with the Anomaly name in 2012 through a weekly YouTube series.
Yes, so which sadly is no longer findable on YouTube. I've been looking for, do you want to talk about that series a little bit? Tell people what it was, even though it's not accessible anymore?
Yeah, so I actually think you're referencing one from 2014.
Maybe.
Which is the weekly jams.
Yes,
but then
exactly.
There was one
so there's something
way before
that.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah. Yes. It's very.
If you're watching
cringe.
right now, hack Anomaly's YouTube account. We got to get those old videos. We got to.
So it's actually like a whole separate channel which doesn't exist at all. So I think it's impossible. But you can try if you want.
Man, you don't want to tell a hacker it's impossible. That's just a challenge. You know?
Okay.
Anyway, just say that. Anyway, but so you had this YouTube channel.
Yeah. Where I was like making a beat per week. So it was like the concept was interesting, but it was like, but it was cool because I started messing around with different ideas and concepts back then. So 1 week was a full-on track. And then the second week was like a short track that was an arrangement of a classical piece, but like flipped in like an electronic vibe.
Okay.
and I would like play the sample or like the part that I was using, and then play the track after, and then I kept that pace for like 9 or 10 months. So there was like quite a lot of songs and videos
Right.
with a lot of distortion and peaks in every meter. Which
Hey,
was
you gotta
beautiful.
learn. You gotta learn.
You gotta learn. You gotta learn.
Yeah.
And then I guess I started putting up like a band together, which is the band that we played with the first time we met at La Cypher.
Yes. Yes.
So I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna keep this like as a solo thing for everything that's online, but maybe start putting up a band for live shows, which is still what I do today. So the idea of that started in 2013. So I made an EP back then, and then like did a couple of local gigs with that live band, and then came back to YouTube with the weekly jam series,
Okay.
which is a concept I definitely want to explore, like in the next year or so, where I would basically go back to that weekly video routine, but have a different guest on every video or song. So I would get like someone to come over at my place, and we would make a song in a day. I would like very quickly mix it and then put a video together, which was very, very fun. And then shortly after that, I guess we started doing. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, just before we move on, one of the things that I really liked about that duo series was that you also did like an interview.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? Like
That's
you
right. There
spoke
was
to
a
the
bonus
person.
video.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is like this guy has it all figured out. He's got the whole there's the
thanks,
performance, there's the behind the scenes, you know. So I do hope you bring that back, that aspect of it back as well. But anyway, sorry. So then you're saying you're thinking of revisiting this and
Yeah, maybe like on less because it was very very much homemade, but I think the concept was cool, and it was cool like working with all those different people, which like spices it up. It's very nice. And then we started like doing more local gigs, and then eventually did the Cypher gig, which was awesome. And then shortly after that, I joined the house band, and that was an amazing experience. Changed my life. For real. For real. Completely honest. Like it was a game changer. It was so cool.
how did it change? Like what? I don't want to talk about me, but how did the experience impact you? How did the experience impact you?
So like I discovered like the roots maybe like 2 years before that. So I got like into hip hop quite like late in my life, in my like musical evolution, if you will, and finding like the existence of live hip hop was mind blowing with the roots. But actually being a part like in Montreal like of a live hip hop ensemble with improv driven and all that, that was so cool, and like it got me to really dive in repertoire and seeing like all of this like generation of cats that are playing live hip hop or hip hop inspired, of course with like several other genres mixed in, but that was like so cool, and like the adrenaline of like making stuff on the spot with all of these different amazing musicians, and like it's just such an amazing night. I was like blown away by the concept, and you're the man.
I am a man. I am just a man. Today we're talking to the man, though. Anomaly is the man. I'm just a man. But that is very interesting, just in terms of your upbringing and how it started. So I'm really curious to. I mean, the stuff that you did in 2012. You know, I guess, you know, no, I mean, there's no way to, I don't know how people are going to find it, you know, but it's so, I mean, I understand why you did what you did in terms of, you know, scrubbing it and like, okay, we need to have a new.
Starting fresh.
Starting fresh. And like, I don't want people seeing all this weird random stuff and, you know, but I do love finding that weird random stuff. I guess every person, like, because, you know, think of like the fans of Anomaly who are like, how did he get started? What was it? You know, they want to see that old stuff. They want to get a little taste of it. Well, anyway, one day it'll be like a bonus DVD thing. It'll be, you know, hidden away. Maybe, you know, one day. So I wanted to ask a little bit, sort of just going a little bit back again. So you before, so Cégep Saint-Laurent, you started studying music full time. But before that in high school, did you have a music program? You also mentioned a couple of camps and stuff like that. Like, was it all music all the way through, or at some point did you kind of decide I want to do this for real or something?
So I was very fortunate like to grow up in an actual like musical environment, which is like I'm really grateful I got to grow up in that. And it was like never really a question whether I would do music or not. The question was like in what subfield of music, because there are like many options. For a long time I was convinced that I was going to go specifically in like music for picture. So like I was like mostly learning producing to really get into that lane specifically. So throughout CJEB I started doing pitches for either like custom made pitches for ads, or what you call like stock music or royalty free music. Like there's a couple of banks online, so I started working for a website back then, and I did that like pretty much almost full time for like maybe a year and a half. So I really got into that. And as far as like music for picture, I mostly did like student stuff, and then which was really great because there's a lot of really amazing student movie projects. But then Anomaly like kind of got its new fresh start, and then I decided to go fully into that.
So when you were working for the company making like commercial music basically, like how like were you just getting I guess my question is, were you like writing like 5 tunes a day or 5 things a day, or was it like more based on contracts coming in, or how was that working?
So for like the stock music website, I was writing a certain number of songs every month, and then like doing like packages and cuts and like shorter versions and longer versions. And then for the custom made stuff, it's whenever it came in, and then doing the pitch whether I got it or not. So like doing the 30 seconds or a minute, and then doing like a couple of versions, and then crossing my fingers that I would get it.
So I guess the kind of the question that I'm trying to get at is like how much composing were you doing? You know, like so in the course of a month, like how many tunes did you write or whatever? Right. You can call them tunes.
It's a good question. It's kind of hard to tell because like in terms of like daily workflow, the volume is pretty similar to now, where I like write something almost every day. It's just that in that period, it was like a good part of it was destined to be used for this specifically. So obviously I would tailor the writing process to this, but it was like I would send like 5 to sometimes 10 a month. It was like around those numbers.
Right. I'm just always curious because, you know, we always say, I mean, people, musicians, artists, whatever, always say that you just got to keep doing it. You got to just throw out, you know, a million of them. And like there's well, I don't know if it's true, but there's a story that John Zorn, when he was writing the Masada stuff, apparently wrote 300 tunes in 3 months. That's what he claims. That's what crazy. He claims, which is insane. Like, how do you even, and because I was watching an interview with him, and he said, like, somebody was like, how is that even possible? Like, how do you know, were you working? Like, how did you do that? You know, living in New York, writing 300, like, how do you do that? And he said, well, I found out that a bag of potatoes was like $1.99, and that would last me a week and a half. So for 3 months, I ate potatoes.
That's so crazy.
That's insane.
That's a crazy story. But the thing with that statement is like, what does it mean to write a song? Like, what roles are you playing? Like, there's so many variables to like how much time it can take you. It's still like incredibly impressive. But like, if you're like making a short beat, that's the same loop for the whole song. Like there are a lot of producers that like they crank out like 3 beats a day and they just move on to the next one. Like my personal goal is like an idea day, whether that's like an 8-bar loop or like a 1-minute idea or 2-minute idea. I rarely go to that mark, except it's like maybe like just piano or just one instrument. But it's like as soon as like it's a produced arrangement, I like throw ideas and then develop it like later, maybe like the next week or so or something like that. So like
it's like the draft might be in one day, which has all the ideas there, but you know it might take you 4 months to get the right hi-hat sound or something.
Exactly.
You know you go. So, and then also, I mean, in fairness, like when we're talking about in terms of you writing tunes, you're really producing it, like you're recording it as well. Whereas I think John Zorn was just writing, sheet music with like chords and melodies, which is a different.
But which is also very long.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is
but I'm
why 300 is crazy.
I know, it's still insane. I don't know how. Anyway, one day you both of you will have to do a competition, see who writes more tunes. But
I would lose. I would definitely lose.
So that's a kind of a little bit, and then you started developing the Anomaly project, and from there it kind of. I mean, did you, when you had the most the incarnation of the project that became what it is today, which I guess started, you said 2016? Or 2016 was when you had the live band. Is that right? Or I might have gotten that wrong.
So it's just basically I had taken like a 1.5 year hiatus, and then started my social media again in 2016. And before getting into any like actual song release or putting the band back together, it was mostly about like just posting frequently like these short either covers or jams or old versions. So on Instagram specifically, like the maximum length was like 15 seconds, and there was Vine also. So I was like I was practicing and doing like these little loops and stuff. So I was just putting them on those platforms, and then some of them like started getting some traction, which eventually led me to get in touch with Grammatic. So this EDM artist with whom I toured as a keyboard player for like a year after that. And then like gradually, sometimes I like slow down the frequency of the videos, but like put a little bit more time into them. And then some of them, before even the first EP, like had gained quite a lot of traction, which then led to like the preparation for the first EP. I just basically used the same idea of like putting up videos for songs that were made in very similar way to the previous ones. Some of the ideas of the previous videos were made into full songs for the EP, and so on and so on. So that was pretty much the start of that era.
Right. So in terms of like sort of your use of social media, like you're saying, you kind of blew up on Instagram you were focusing on Instagram and Vine.
And
were those
actually? So the first one to get more traction was Facebook. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which was the one that got traction on Facebook?
Sorry.
Sorry. Which was the video that got traction on Facebook?
Oh, a couple of jams.
Oh, okay. So you just, the point is that you started to post videos on these platforms and seeing how it. So I guess people always ask questions about like how to promote on social media and all this kind of thing. I guess my question for you would be kind of like, how did you balance like thinking about the musical considerations as you were filming something or working on an idea and the platform? Like, were you saying, okay, I'm doing a thing for Vine, and I'm specifically doing a thing for Vine, and I'm working on this length of loop? Or were you just kind of like working on music and then just adapting, or a bit of both? Or what? How did that process work?
It's a very good question. I guess like it was a bit of both. The most, like, the thing that I'm most grateful for with like the 2012 and 13 experiments was that like I did get to mess a lot with all of that, like getting familiar with like algorithms, how to optimize like uploads and video formats. So like I'm not a videographer, I'm not a graphic artist, but I can like just manage the basics on like several different aspects of like those tasks, or like a little bit of coding as well for websites. So that was like my model right from the start. Like before getting like anyone else involved in like an eventual team, I wanted to be like a little bit knowledgeable in all of those key aspects, so that the day that I would need to ask someone to work on something, I would like sort of know what I'm talking about. So I'm like more in control of stuff, and it gives you like a much clearer picture. But like for the format, usually I would just adapt. Let's say like I made like a 50 or 1 minute second idea that day. I would like work like on a shorter version, like a 15 or 20 second, and then just trim it and crop the formats for every platform, which is what I still do today. So whenever I post on platforms, I make the jam, I record it, mix it and master it, and then I'll do like just several video edits for every platform and make them on all of those.
So that's interesting. That was kind of like my next question in line with that, is because people are obviously some bigger brands, you know, have people in charge of their social media or in charge of this or that. So are you still 100% in charge of your social media? Do you have a few, because obviously you have a team, you have a manager, you have bookers, etc. Is that stuff semi handled by other people, or is it
So it's really just me and my manager.
Okay.
So like we'll bounce like ideas back and forth. He's like very good with ads, like, so he's like handling all of that 100% for tours and stuff. It's been amazing. Like he's really familiar in control with those platforms.
So you said he's very good with ads? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the ad
so like
platforms.
promoting the upcoming shows and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
And like managing a budget for ads and that sort of
Right.
thing, optimizing, which I had like no idea. I got a little bit into it, but it's not something that I had explored beforehand. But as far as like posting goes, or like optimizing videos and that sort of thing, I was already doing it. And before like anyone got involved with the project, I was already getting used to that workflow. So
Right.
I mean, it's like I said, we're bouncing ideas back and forth, but like there's not someone that's like telling me, all right, you should post this week here, and then like think about the next one. We're like exchange,
Right.
but it's still like how I want to plan it first and foremost.
Right. I'm going to get actually into some questions just because I do have one here from Norman Tran, and it's not necessarily directly related, but we can maybe use this as a transition. He asks, where did Anomaly's stylistic tastes for non-functional passing chords come from? Very specific harmony question.
It's very specific, but it's very cool.
Thanks for submitting the question. And anybody who wants to submit a question, please feel free to do so. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I don't really have like a really definitive answer. I guess like it's stuff that came in gradually, and I started messing around. I say like very often that transcriptions are the key when you want to get like in a specific repertoire, or like integrate some new vocab to your playing. That's really cool. I guess like, I don't know, like there's some cool movements. I really got like into Stravinsky and Ravel. So like the late classical composers got some really cool textures that are used a lot by modern film composers, and then some jazz artists as well. I don't know if that's a definitive answer, but like some more like, I don't know, like dissonant harmonies can definitely come from there.
I guess what you're saying is there wasn't like a specific system or whatever.
No.
You know, it comes from looking at, you know, I mean, especially nowadays with all these YouTube, you know, people teaching stuff on YouTube and all this, I feel like there's less and less
so many resources.
Secrets. Yeah, exactly. There's so many resources. It's just like, you know, whether it's voice leading or well, you've said transcription, you know, looking at, like, I remember many years ago, the first time I translated like a Chopin tune into like chord symbology, and I was looking at certain harmonic movements, and I was like, I spent so much time on just one sequence of chords, just being like, what is this? It's not like a 5/5 progression. It's not like, you know, just spending so much time. So there is, and this is stuff that was like, you know, hundreds of, in some cases, hundreds of years old, you know, so there is super hip stuff that has been done years ago. So anyway, I'm just reiterating your thing of like, please transcribe, you know, and there's super hip stuff going on today too, of course.
There's so much amazing stuff being made.
Yeah, but buy those Anomaly transcriptions from Metropole 1 and 2, and you'll get all the secrets answered right there. Which, by the way, I think...
But there are no secrets, like you said.
Yeah. But I think it's actually amazing that you focused on that as well. It's like you're very sort of self-aware in the sense of like, the reason why people are liking this are for certain reasons, and so there's going to be a lot of musicians who are into it. They're going to want to learn how to play this stuff. So actually, was that something did you make those transcriptions yourself, or did you send it to a company and you did them yourself?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
But so the transcriptions are up for sale on this platform called SoundSlice, which is amazing. It's cool because it's like interactive. There's like playback, you can slow it down, speed it up, and then just follow the sheet music with the audio at the same time, which I thought was really cool. So I basically do the transcription on like my notation software, and then upload the file on that platform, edit a little bit. That's where sometimes I'll get help for like specific stuff that doesn't translate to their platform, but most of the time it works just really fine. and then they have like their own network and like amazing stuff being posted by like all sorts of musicians from everywhere. So it's really cool.
Okay, that's interesting. I kind of assumed that it was somebody on their side that did the transcription, and you sent them like a MIDI file or something of from your production. But that's cool. So those transcriptions, man, those are handwritten by Anomaly himself. That's the real stuff. But that's the best way to do it, because there's no, sometimes when somebody reinterprets what you've done, you're like, that's not what it is.
Exactly.
So,
I sort of want to be in control of that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes if it's funny, because if there's a mistake, well, it's me that made it, and then some people point it out. I'm like, yeah, okay. it's pretty funny.
That's hilarious.
It happens.
I mean, obviously, it's but I used to transcribe myself a lot. Like I was in this band where we would play on a weekly basis, and I would record it, and then I would listen back, and of course I'd be like hand in my face, like oh, this is terrible. But I started transcribing some of the errors, because some of the errors were either cool in themselves, or like I was trying for something and I did it wrong, so then I'd like transcribe it and fix it, kind of thing.
Oh, that's fascinating.
But anyway, just coming back to the please everybody transcribe. It's the best thing.
But I never heard something like that. That's crazy. That's so cool.
Oh, really? Well, you must have. You never transcribed yourself?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Most of the time, like, so pretty much everything I've released and everything I share online is like very prepared all the time,
of course,
arranged and structured. So when I like write in and stuff, it's there anyways, and like I put it in like in different sections and stuff. So usually I'll like start with an improv and then listen to it and then structure it and punch in different elements. So I don't know if that counts, but
absolutely, I think so.
There you go.
Yeah. Just following up from earlier, Norman says, I've gone to 3 of his live shows and his masterclass, and I can't get enough. And I think with regards to the transcriptions, he says, I own both. Haha. So,
my guy.
There's
Thanks
a real
so much,
fan
Norman.
checking it out. Yeah. We're waiting for some Norman covers of Anomaly tunes. That's the next challenge.
I think he did.
Oh yeah, did he? So actually, I'll mention that Anomaly has a group. For those who don't know, he has a Facebook group called Anomaly's New Space. I only discovered it like a couple of years ago or so. I can't remember exactly when. I was like, this is amazing. It's basically a place where a lot of fans of his music either just like are interacting as fans, but often they're posting like their versions of Anomaly things, or like or tunes that are inspired by your style, or all this kind of thing. What was the story with that group? Did you just kind of create it out of the blue, or like how did that?
So that was my manager's initiative. I thought it was really cool.
Amazing.
He was inspired by their other artist groups, as like the Wolfpack one is very, very active and super big, and it's kind of the same idea. There's a lot of like artists in like the more EDM world that have like their Facebook groups, and it's the idea of like creating a community with like one mindset of subject, and I think it creates like a really cool place to exchange and stuff. So yeah.
So that's how it got. Yeah, that's very cool. Shout out to Alex Steinfeld, I think is the name of your manager. Shout out to Alex Steinfeld. Sounds like you got a good partner in crime there. I guess maybe let's talk a little bit. I'm just gonna check. Oh, I see. Okay, Norman says, I did my favorite things in his new space, and I'm learning his Anderson .Paak cover right now. So sweet. I guess he's working on that one next. But we're sort of talking, we were talking about like harmony and all this, and you had given me, I asked everybody to give me a little pre-interview, some information so I can kind of start to dig a little bit. And you had given me a very extensive list of influences. I'm just going to read through the influences real quick. So you said Quincy Jones, Herbie Hancock, Oscar Peterson, Roy Hargrove, Jay Dilla, George Gershwin, Johannes Brahms, D'Angelo, Bill Evans, Dave Grusin, Ennio Morricone, just recently passed away, Nujabes, Derek Hodge, Robert Glasper, 20 Sil, Timbaland, Cone Sound, Igor Stravinsky, Brian Wilson, Hiromi, Michael Jackson, Tennyson, Her, James Blake, now Lizzo, and The Roots. Okay, so tons of influences. First of all, what I love about it is really just how it goes from like all areas of the spectrum of music, and it's there's so many in there, but I guess what I'm going to ask you to do is maybe, can you go through just a couple? Obviously this list is way too many to go through, but could you maybe talk about a couple of them, and a brief takeaway, or like what you got out of their music, or of them as a person, or whatever?
Right. So I did include like obviously both some OGs or like very 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 old OGs.
Sure, yeah.
And then some like very modern stuff that I discovered like once I already started the project, because my peers, many of them are also my influences, and then a lot of peers are their own influences. I think that's a really important
Exactly.
aspect of like having a circle like that, is that you're inspired by what your friends do. But I usually try to like just my listening habits throughout the week. I'll try to cover like a wide range of styles. Sometimes it's like a style a day, if you will, but I usually end up like mixing stuff.
Right.
But if I want to get into a certain mood, and sometimes I'll try to practice more into that lane, or stuff like that. I've been trying to get like more into Brazilian music, which is something that I was like
Oh.
not super familiar with, and still
Okay.
not like really knowledgeable. But I feel like there's some amazing percussion stuff going, and especially like in
Sure.
the 80s, where like some artists like Marcos Valle had like some George Benson vibes with like the Portuguese tongue, and so then like the clavins and stuff. It's like a really really epic mix. It's so cool. So I've been getting into that.
What other Brazilian artists have you been getting into?
Like I said, I'm really not knowledgeable, so I
Okay,
got like a
right.
list of artists that my friends sent me, and I've been listening to the playlist, but I haven't taken notes, so I
Right.
know like no names. I'm terrible.
The one in the context of Brazilian music, I always have to. Have you checked out Hermeto Pascoal?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so you're gonna have to. He is. Dave Rishpan is a big fan. I'm a big fan. Christopher Carniello. He is like the wizard, the magician of Brazilian music, and he did a lot of. He was one of the first guys that I discovered that did a lot of transcriptions of sounds in nature or people speaking and all that kind of thing.
Sweet. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's just I went I forget where it was, but New England somewhere. I went down there to see him perform, and it was like one of those life-changing experiences where you just learn, like you're just taking notes all the way through the show because you're like, oh my god, I know, why didn't I think of that? And like
That's so cool.
it's not even just the music; it's the way the music is embodied in him. That
Right.
it's there's no disconnection between the music and the person. Like his wife is in the band, and he started dancing with her
wow.
in the middle of a tune on stage.
Oh my god.
Like, you know
That's
what I mean?
beautiful.
It's just total freedom, you know.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry, that was a big sidetrack.
Life
But you were
goals.
saying, yeah, exactly. But you were saying Brazilian artists, and then talk more about a little bit about your influences.
Right. Well, I did mention like Ravel and Stravinsky earlier
Yes.
on. Like that's like the like latest classical stuff that I like, where I feel like harmonically it gets like really crunchy. There's obviously like Chopin, which was like way ahead of its time and super interesting, but like the really late ones that were actually alive at the same time of like some jazz artists were starting to do their thing. I feel like that's where there's a really cool crossover. And then so Gershwin kind of fits right in there, where he's doing like a classicalized version of jazz, which I thought was very, very interesting. And it was actually my sort of introduction to that world as a classical pianist at first. And then for like jazz piano, so like Oscar Peterson, for me is like the reference. He's like my favorite jazz pianist, maybe with Art Tatum, because they're like, I feel like he's like a sort of continuation of Art Tatum, but then Art Tatum for like certain pieces is unmatched to this day, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But like as far as like the music, because there's like some very like ragtime elements in Art Tatum's playing, whereas because Oscar Peterson came later on, I feel like there's a wider mix of stuff, which was very cool to my ears. I guess it really resonated with me. And the virtuosity is amazing, but then it gets really amazing in like the slower pieces as well. And for me, like he's the OG. But then harmonically, obviously, Bill has some amazing movements that we hear on every lo-fi hip hop beats today. Sometimes for the best, sometimes for the worst. But you know,
well, I don't have a problem with lo-fi music.
Me neither.
Lo-fi, yeah, you know,
it's like the meme is like you put the song, you don't chop the sample. He puts like drums on it, and it's called like My Love. And like that's
oh my god.
Okay.
Yeah. It's you know.
But it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Dave Grusin for like piano playing, but Rhodes playing too. Amazing stuff. Actually discovered him through the Jay Dilla sample, which is
really? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Actually, I heard some of his music for film, but I didn't like really dive into the repertoire until I found the sample. I thought this is so cool.
Right.
Which is great. One thing that's great about hip hop is like when you actually dig into the samples and where they come from, it's just like it never ends. It's so cool.
Yeah. It's I always love DJs that really, will play with that. They'll play the original and then play the sampled version, and and it's crazy how many of those. Well, I don't know. Like, there's some where I definitely prefer the hip hop version, but sometimes you like, oh my god, how come I've never heard of this song before? When you see the original, because it's so good. Like from beginning to end, it's so good. Like, how did it not become like a? Anyway, it's one of those things of questioning of.
What's the sample from Far Side's Running?
That's it's a bossa nova. Coming back to the Brazilian thing.
Yeah,
it's Stan Getz. Are you looking it up right now, or looking it up as well?
And Luis Bonfa.
Yes.
So good.
Yes. That's a great example of some really happening original.
That's
sources.
So good. It's a really good song.
Actually, I just wanted to, because Norman had a few more things he was saying.
Sure.
He said, if you release a bossa nova inspired song, I'm going to die. So that's the first thing. So maybe you shouldn't release one. We want Norman to stay healthy, so we don't want that to happen. And then he's, I wonder whether you've played this stuff. So I feel like Anomaly would be heavily inspired by Nikolai Kasputin, who also uses rapid passing notes in inner lines. Are you familiar with Kasputin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you ever played some of his stuff, or?
I haven't. No.
Okay.
I should.
I haven't played any of it either, but I discovered it maybe 5 years ago, and I was like, what the heck is this? This is like it's actually kind of like Gershwin, but more like Oscar Peterson oriented or something.
I guess,
more blowing oriented or something.
Right.
But anyway, whatever.
Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 years for me as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned actually about Gershwin being one of your big influences. And Rhapsody in Blue, I think, was mentioned somewhere as being one of your favorite compositions.
It's so cool.
It's phenomenal. And it's phenomenal. I was just wondering whether you'd ever heard the Marcus Roberts version of Rhapsody in Blue.
Actually, I remember you sending me that
I sent it to you. Okay. Way back
really
in the
good.
day. Yeah. Okay. It's so if anybody hasn't checked it out, it's like if we're talking about Gershwin combining classical and jazz, like that version is definitely combining
crazy.
Classical. Yeah. So and I was checking earlier, there's a bunch of versions on YouTube, so you can actually see different interpretations of the piece, which is also amazing. But anyway, sorry, were there some other influences you wanted to get into before we go into another subject?
Yes, well, just the role that Quincy Jones, I think, played like in a lot of people's lives, in many cases without them knowing, because he's basically like, his name is everywhere. It's crazy. Yay!
And you got to meet him, which is insane. I cannot.
I melted.
I'm sure there's a little puddle right underneath here if you look there.
Yes, if you zoom in, it's right there.
Exactly.
I shit my pants too if you want to zoom in.
I can smell it. It's there's a new app that lets you smell from photos, and I can smell
amazing it. It doesn't surprise me that you found that app.
Well, I guess talk about Quincy's influence in terms of you, and then maybe tell us like what secrets you learned from Quincy when you spoke to him. Like,
it was a very short conversation. I was just like blown away by the person. He's very generous, and has like a very amazing positive aura. It's just very inspiring when you meet like one of your heroes, and to see that he's or that she's very like radiating and positive and nice and humble. It's just so satisfying. It's really cool. But that being said, so like there's so much music that influenced me, and that I had no idea that Quincy had a part to play in it. And then I discovered later on, I'm like, almost like every track that influenced me the most, Quincy had something to do with it. And that's like crazy.
Yeah. There was a documentary, I think it was made by his daughter. Am I wrong about? Did you watch this one?
Yeah, I did.
Man, it's just yeah. It's just insane. Like you said, his hand is in everything. It's really in everything. He's everywhere. You know, and it's amazing. Yeah. So you've had the sorry. Are there more influences you'd like to talk about?
I mean, if you want to get in modern stuff, maybe, I don't know.
As you like.
Well, I was just mentioning like some of the so peers or like very modern artists. I think Neo, if you don't know her, she's one of my favorite artists and singers currently. I heard her 2015 album first, like in at an H&M or something. I was like, this is like very hip for H&M music. Not to be mean, because there's like a lot of really cool stuff that's being played there, but like I feel like it generally fits a certain mood, and I was like blown away by one of her songs. And she works closely with one of my favorite producers as well, called Grades. And like it's crazy, like you hear on the record and then you're like, there's no way, well, not everyone, but a lot of people, their first reaction is like, it's a really cool voice, but it feels like it's edited or it's not a real voice. And then you hear her live, and that's actually how she sings. And
right.
It's, to me, it's mind blowing. And like the textures that she's able to get and how varied her songs are, it really inspired me a lot for my own productions. The first time I heard that album.
Yeah, for me, I kind of had a similar reaction when I first saw Jonathan Horde perform. Because to me, he sounded like he was singing with autotune. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in the precision,
totally get
you know?
Yes.
And I was like, how the hell, you know? So anyway, it was a similar thing. So definitely check out Now. For those wondering why sometimes I might play some videos with no sound on, it's because I don't want the whole stream to go down for copyright violations. So that's why I'm sometimes just playing stuff with no sound, in case you're wondering. And Mark the Magnanimous is watching as well. He said, did somebody say Dilla? I'm pretty sure we talked about Drake and not Dilla.
And Drake.
I think we were talking about Drake.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about Drake.
Okay.
So, you know, Drake is Mark's favorite artist of all time. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that, who's watching this video knows this fact. And somebody asked, how do you spell her name? It's spelled N-A-O. N-A-O. So you can find her that way. Sorry, I just got a little confused with the... Oh, yeah, sorry. It was Dore Mi Fadi who asked that question. Sorry, I'm trying to like navigate and host and do all these things at the same time. Actually, on the subject of influences, you know, you did get to meet Quincy Jones, of course. You've had some incredible opportunities to meet some of the people that have influenced you. Can you tell me what happened here and who was there and what was the context? That's the man.
Hello. Yeah, there were some fire jams happening there. So this was at Jazzy Jeff's playlist retreat last August, so almost pretty much a year ago. The pandemic, there is no playlist retreat this year.
Of course, yeah.
He's such an inspiring figure. I feel like he's a modern like Mother Teresa. Like he's for real. Like, so obviously he's very well known for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but then all of his career afterwards. But I feel like obviously like a lot of our idols usually continue on impressing us, but I feel like you don't have to. You're not obligated to put your resources to good use and available to everyone around you, or like contributing or helping your communities. But when people do it, to me, it's huge. And I feel there's no better example than him. He's putting like his resources to help the community around him, like connect, inviting people of like different generations, of different environments, coming from different musical backgrounds, and putting them together to create like on the spot He's bringing like people that he believes in on tour with him. He produces young and upcoming artists. It's just huge what he's doing, and him and his wonderful team and family. So that was like a 3-day thing last year, which felt like summer camp for grown-ups. That's pretty much what it was, with activities and conferences, and it was great. And there was like basically music going on during the day and during the night, whether you went to the DJ room or the studio with musicians jamming. So it was like pretty much I tried to talk to as much people as I could. Sometimes I was a little bit shy and intimidated, so I didn't. But most people were like very, very, very nice and welcoming. So it was very, very nice.
Was there anybody that you regret not speaking to, that you were just like, I can't talk to them?
Yeah, Robert Glasper was there, and I did not talk to him, which I kind of regret. Yeah.
Oh man, because I saw one of the videos where you're right next to him while he's playing, and you're facing like the other way, and I was like, oh man, they must have connected, and I guess
we didn't. Yeah. I mean, I really love Robert Glasper. I guess next time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just tell him that Corey Henry's one of your students now. So
there you go.
That's
no,
I saw the little Twitter interchange there.
I'm Corey's student.
I see. And that's what it is. But I had cut you off just as you were talking about the retreat. I mean, although I wonder like whether you slept at all during that whole 3-day time. I mean, there was been so much stuff going on,
Yeah.
But was there something further you wanted to talk about? I mean, I wanted to just say that like what you're talking about in terms of like an elder statesman, quote unquote, and I don't mean that in terms of age, just in terms of like reaching a certain level of success and connections. But that them kind of giving back and bringing other people up. I mean,
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's
and
beautiful.
it's necessary, because it's like, there's so many intricacies of this industry that we work in that we don't know anything about, and that we can get screwed on, and that we can, and all this kind of thing, and to have somebody there be like, okay, this is what these are the people you need to meet. This is how you
wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they've had like so many experiences.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're talking about, and they have so much to share.
Absolutely.
I also believe it's necessary, but it's just surprising. Like there's a lot of people who don't do it, and it's not like problematic, but to see someone do it and like on such a scale and be so nice about it and positive, to me, it's like super inspiring.
Yeah. So I'm kind of figuring out where we can go next on this. I mean, there's so many. Well, actually, I'll just mention, like, speaking of influences and all this, you were also talking a little bit about like influences and then contemporaries as well.
Right.
Yes. So you've had the in your touring ensemble, you've had Rob Araujo for the last 2 years, I think, something like that. And you've brought him to the Cypher at least 2 or 3 times. I can't even remember. I mean, I do remember that he played saxophone at one of the times.
That's
I was
right.
like, what the hell is going on? And then you also brought by JD Beck and Domi, and like it was
they're crazy. And they're so young.
Exactly.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I remember seeing that first video of Domi sight reading the Lingus transcription solo, and I was like, who the hell is
it's crazy. All right, so I have a story about that.
Okay, tell.
So it was it 3 years ago? I think it's 3. So I was all right, so I was doing a thing for Spectrasonics, and then Eric, who owns the Spectrasonics, one of my role models, amazing person, and he's a story in himself. I could just talk about him. Yeah, well, that's Eric on the right there.
There we go.
Anyway, so I spent the week working with him, and he's like, all right, there's a party on Saturday if you want to come with me. I'm like, oh, sure. I don't have any plans, and I love Eric. He's like super easy to talk with. He's super nice and very young in his mind, but he's still like a 50-something dude who's invited me to a party. I'm like, it's gonna be like, like, I don't know, like a nice thing. We're gonna have like one
You're
drink.
being very polite in what you're saying, but I think we all understand what you mean.
You know, but it's,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, no problem.
It's a dinner party or something, you know. Yeah.
You know, and it's actually a house party at Louis Cole's place.
Oh my God.
And I'm
okay.
like, whoa, what's going on? And then so he lives with Genevieve, they're right there, who are nowhere together. And so he has like this amazing house party where like he's basically like testing some tunes with a van, and like there's people everywhere in every single corner of his house watching the show. And I'm in the corner just enjoying what's going on. It's beautiful, it's crazy, it's funny. There's some amazing music being played. The performance is crazy. And then like there's this like really young girl. I think obviously she was younger than now, but she seemed even younger. And she just like starts shredding like crazy. And like, what is going on? She's like 15 or something. And I've never seen someone play like this in my life. I'm like, what? And that's where I met Domi and heard her for the first time. And she's so inspiring. It's crazy.
Was that before she had gotten to Berkeley, like, or was that already?
So she had been in the States for like a couple of months.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
Not like 1 or 2. So she barely spoke English.
Right.
It was crazy. Beautiful.
Wow.
She just like arrived at Berkeley. She started her semester just before or something like that.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, you know, people always say it's like the younger generation is always better than the one that came before. You know, it's like they're always pushing that bar further and further and further.
For sure.
And the two of those are like I'm talking about JD Beck and Domi are just like a powerhouse, you know. But yeah, so, and that's cool also that you got to go to a house party where Lewis Cole was just, that's crazy. That's amazing.
It was a very inspiring and mind-blowing and hilarious experience, because if you know the character and his whole approach to videos and costumes,
sure,
I think you can only imagine the house party version. There's like obviously a toy one, but like a gun taped to his microphone for the whole show.
Okay.
Why? I don't know. But
like,
it's fun.
I mean, I guess you're saying it's an actual gun, like it's not a toy gun or something.
I wouldn't ask questions.
Hey man, it's the USA. Who knows? Who knows?
I'm pretty sure it's a toy one, because he's a sweetheart. So, you know.
So who knows? That's amazing. I was going to talk. Actually, you know what? Let me just pull up, because I had this one other photo here, just in terms of influences and whatever. So can you tell me a little bit about this man?
J3PO.
Yes.
This dude is really great. So we don't know each other like that well. We've talked a couple of times, but never like really got to hang or really jam, which we've, I think, both been really eager to do. But he's definitely like a great inspiration, amazing keyboard player and arranger. I first found out about him through the Jam of the Week group, where he had posted like it was a talk box arrangement of a Christmas scroll. I don't remember which one. It was like a 6-voice thing, and it was like the harmonic textures and colors that he uses. It's really, really cool, and he's an amazing synth player and sound designer as well. The complete package. J3PO.
Yeah. For those who don't know, the cipher was heavily inspired by a band in New York called Lesson, and every time I get a chance to get to New York and see them, you know, or get to New York, I always want to check out the Lesson. And the last couple of times, J3PO was part of the band, and now he's part of the like touring project and all this, which has 3 keyboard players, yet it somehow doesn't feel like too much. So of course, all of that could be played by Anomaly on his left hand, you know. But
no, dude, that's I appreciate the praise, but no way. They're all like amazing keyboard players.
It's true. They're all killing it.
They could each like play everything on their own, but it's the interaction between like each his own style, and like they know how to complement each other. If like someone starts a part and then the other one like has like his own, like Nick Samrat is like very pedal oriented, and like they each like complement their sound.
It's also like, you know, how can I say, like piano is a certain instrument, but like every whether it's an analog synth or like, they are different instruments. Organ is a different instrument from piano.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, it has a keyboard on it, but it's a different instrument,
For sure.
and they really, what you said is right. Like they understand the value of space and how to use that to its maximum as much as possible. Great band. If you haven't checked out the lesson, if you haven't checked out J3PO, check that stuff out. So let's kind of move in it. Actually, let me just check real quick if there's any additional questions. Mark just said, Jazzy Jeff, your favorite DJ's favorite DJ. Absolutely correct. So and again, we are taking questions at any moment. If you have a question for Anomaly, please drop it down in the comments. So let's move into, actually, let's talk a little bit, since we're talking about music and all this kind of thing. I know that you said you had a couple of ideas that you wanted to impart on people, some things you've been working on. And of course, I'm sure people may have questions in terms of like, man, how did your tech, because I think, there's many great things about your playing, don't get me wrong, but I think your technique is something that is very notable, right? Like when people see
thank you, man.
I remember, the first time I saw one of your videos, I can't remember which one it was, but I remember being like, is this real? Like, what is this fake, or is this,
thanks so much, man.
So, and it is real, ladies and gentlemen, it is. So, yes, talk to us a little bit about some piano stuff or music stuff or whatever.
So I was going to go maybe like more into like 3 technical or like just DAW setups that I was using in the past month and a half, but I also have like a piano thing that I was working on. Do
you want to switch over the share here?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just going to do a little technical switch over here while Anomaly switches it over. But I think,
all right.
Whoops, hold on a second.
Is it all set?
Not just yet. I made a little mistake. Okay. All right, they should be able to see that now and hear it, of course.
All right.
So, and if you can't for some reason, again, please drop us a little message. So here we go. We got Ableton.
All right. So first thing, so about like a month or a month and a half ago, I discovered like this neat little app called MIDI Patch Bay. So for any person who like has either like only VSTs or hardware at home and is trying to figure out like hardware setup, this is, I found it really, really useful. So I believe that this one is only Mac, but there's actually like another MIDI patch bay that's a completely different app, also available for PC. It's a different interface, but it's the same idea. So it's basically like a MIDI interface, but where you can route both existing routings that you have in your workspace and virtual ones. So basically what this allows me to do is from my main controller, I'm able to route MIDI on different channels to, let's say, the Juno, a Reface, or another keyboard, and then any other standalone apps outside of the DAW without being affected by the DAW's buffer size, which is a big thing. So when I open my computer, this is immediately open and I can practice any sound whenever I want without opening the DAW. And then once I'm in the DAW, let's say like I'm in the later stages of production where I'm handling like a larger buffer size to get more effects going and there's a really large latency, I can run this without worrying about the DAW at all. So let's say this will be controlling the bass, this will be the Juno, this will be the montage, but all triggered from the main keyboard, so I'm not moving in my room. And then what I'll do is I'll have like a standalone version of Keyscapes, sometimes Onisphere or like FM8 or another standalone version that's like always open. So let's say I'm trying like to punch in a part, like I said, like later on in the production process or mixing process, I can actually record that through this with like no latency at all and not be affected by the DAW. So it's really cool. And then for like a VST, sometimes I'll have like an instance open and I would use it like I would a hardware unit, which it's always open. And then I'll maybe like just use it to, I don't know, like track like a transition effect or a cool noise, but like hardware, I won't go back to edit the sound once the MIDI is recorded. It's just I record it to audio and then it's there. So that's something I found out about like a month and a half ago, and I thought it was really, really useful. And
Nice.
then yes, and then other tips. So I feel that like organizing your patches and sound banks or whatever files you have on your hard drive for your production process it makes like such a big difference.
Hmm.
So like part of my routine is like just to come up with cool patches, and I believe it's possible in every DAW. But the way I've done this in Ableton is like I'll have like the actual preset group that I can like drag on a track, but then I have like these short clips of me playing so I can remember what the sound is. So like,
Right.
all right, so this is the vibe of that patch, and then
Right.
and then sometimes it's like an actual little idea snippet that I can
Right.
use like at a later time. So I just like make a couple every day, and then I can go back to them, and I like note what plugin they were made in, and I highly recommend it. It really changed my workflow for me.
That's really interesting. Like combining, well, because so often it's the sound that is inspiring an idea,
Right.
and so it's directly right there. There's the idea with the sound,
Yeah, exactly.
Very
and
cool.
It saves like a lot of time
Yeah.
to come up with stuff. Next tip. So I started messing around like a lot more with saturation, specifically with this little thing called Saturn by FabFilter. They also make like I think their EQs are like their most widely used plugin. But with this specifically, what I like, so it could be like I think like there's the retro color Excellence Audio, which is very popular as well. But it's basically a saturation unit where you can get like simulation from tubes, tapes, amps, and then pretty much like distortion. But I found out like using this like very dialed in on any track is crazy. You can also use like your native DAW's saturation. And in like this little tone section where this is like very similar to amp settings where you have treble, mid, and bass, and then presence. And then let's say I want to like add air or brightness to a patch, instead of like doing a shelf where like it'll add like brightness, but maybe it'll sound like very digital or cold. Using it through the saturation engine, you're basically like generating harmonics, and it can sound much more pleasing or warm or analog-ish sounding. So it's very dialed in now. But let's say like I turn it off. So this is like a I don't know. Like a synth bass. It's cool, but it's like very clean. So this has like a built-in compressor. So like let's say I put it a little bit higher. If you're on laptop speakers, you probably won't hear a difference. But just so you know, with headphones, dialed in, it'll pretty much play the role of like a good preamp, if you will, or like getting the certain qualities or a grit of a compressor unit. And it was a major discovery for me messing around with that, and I highly recommend it.
I'll just mention real quick in terms of sound, because we're running this interview over Skype and then it's being broadcast on the internet. You may not be getting the full effect of some of these plugins, but do check them. I mean, I can hear the difference. It just may not be completely communicating what you want people to hear.
All right, so
I'm just mentioning that.
100%. There you go.
There you go. All right.
Okay, and next thing. So I started messing around with Granular Synthesis, which is a really cool discovery. So from what I understand, this is like mostly a software thing. There's like a couple hardware units that do offer Granular Synthesis now, but I think it's limited. But I'm not very knowledgeable in what's like currently available. The one I'm gonna demonstrate now is like it's just a free one. That's like a Max for Life patch. You can open it in Ableton. But if like you Google like Granular Synth VST, there's like a bunch of free ones. I know Omnisphere has a built-in one.
What is a granular synth?
I'm getting to it right now.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. All right, so basically in Granular Synthesis, you load an audio sample into it, any file you have, and then it basically like restructures that sample in like a bunch of little snippets, and then you have a bunch of parameters to like determine how their snippets are like reassembled. Like if you put it like very low, like I'll demonstrate now. So this is like a trumpet sample. So that's a sample. And then like if I put the grain value like super low, we're basically just playing a part of that sample. So this is like very close to like a sampler, what a sampler would do.
Mm-hmm.
But if like you bring the grain size down, I'm playing chords, I'll bring it like even more up. And way up, it can sound like really glitchy at a point where it'll have its own like distinct pitch, which can sound really weird but cool. That one's a little bit weird. So what I'll do is like, let's say I bring it back here, and then you can like use any portion of the sample. But I'll use this one. And then I'll use a filter on it. Chorus and reverb.
Wow.
So really cool textures.
Okay. So it's kind of like, well, like you said, it's like a sampler. It's just it's resampling a portion and using that as a sound.
Yeah, but then it goes further than a sampler, messing around with the grain size, just in like a different file position. And you also have like, you can add FM synthesis on top of it. So get like completely different tones. So like, to me, it's been like very inspiring to work with this like as a starting point, because like there's like a lot of stuff you can do with traditional like waves, or like a saw wave or square wave. FM synthesis is like its own beast where you can get a lot of really creative tones. But this gets really interesting because you're actually starting from an audio file. So like you like the tone of like a trumpet or a sample that you have, and then you can either make something that like kind of respects the starting tone, or going like into a completely different direction, and you never really know where it's going to get you. And I just really like geeking out with this process. And I like had like a tune I was making where I had one sample, and it's actually like part of a series that's going to be coming out rather soon. But I was basically making every patch from one sample. So where there was like a bass, a lead, or chords, and then like running it through a bunch of different effects. But it's like a really, really cool process. So to anyone who's like synth curious, I would really recommend messing around with granular synthesis.
Very, very, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was a piano focused one. So I've been super inspired by, she's one of my favorite pianists. Her name is Nare Soul. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah, check out the YouTube channel if you don't know if you don't know her.
It's wow. I was just mind blown. I already knew her like as an amazing piano player, but then the YouTube channel is some next level stuff. So she has like a lot of different series, but one of those series is she'll like tackle the work of a specific like classical composer, and then she'll like identify like patterns or ways of like harmonizing or adding flourishes and lines that they use very often, and then she'll explain them step by step. So like, all right, Stravinsky, or like maybe like Liszt, because he's a piano player. That's a really good example. And then she'll play like, all right, so if there's a line like this, he'll usually do this, and then she does a bunch of different examples, and then at the end of the video, she plays a composition of hers that's in the style of that composer, but she just nails every single part. And like it's already impressive when you explain it, but when you watch it, I really recommend it. It's not only she's like an amazing piano player with like feeling and virtuosity, she like fully understands and masters like every aspect of what she's explaining and composing. It's like, it's impressive to watch, but it's like, it's even harder than like you see and hear. Like the fact, it's just some next level stuff. It's completely mind blowing. So anyways, that inspired me to, and something that I do. So sometimes in my tracks where let's say I have like a theme in a section, I'll bring it like in the second verse or second chorus, and I'll keep the theme very similar to the one that you heard previously, but then without like going on like with a fully like a reharm, just like playing something on the underlying themes or like the way it's voiced, change it like very slightly so that there is some motion, but it's subtle and just makes it a little bit more interesting. So how I've been applying that in practice is like taking a line and then playing that same line in a bunch of different ways. So like she'll explore that by giving examples of how a composer that she's referring to would do it. But let's say like I take like, so like just this line, and then I could play it like for like little chromatic passes with octaves, with like double octaves. With like arpeggios. Or like so I went full on reharm for this one, but like just there's so many ways to play one line or like contrary movement. So I'll usually mess around with this, like find a very simple line and then mess around with it until I've explored like several options, and then sometimes make a track with those variations. So the same line is repeated over and over again, but it's slightly different with every element that's like around it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw in a few, if for those who want to get more about Anomaly, first of all, I should mention there's a ton of interviews you can check out. There's Reddit, AMA, all kinds of stuff. And I did go through a few of these. And I saw a recurring question because, you know, in your music, there's a lot of, I was going to say dense harmony. I mean, there is a lot of harmony. There's a lot of harmonic motion. And so I think a lot of people are very attracted by that. I mean, I'm attracted by that. You're attracted by that. You wouldn't put it there if it wasn't. But to the point that they're just like, all they want to know about is your harmonic approach. And I found in a lot of your answers, you're like, well, the melody comes first. You know, I come up with a melody and then the rest is like, it's kind of not filler, but you know what I mean? It just whatever fits it. And this is kind of like the exercise version of it. It's just like, here's my line.
Absolutely.
And just do like 10 different ways of reharmonizing it, and or not even harmonizing, but like you said, based on a different style or different kind of...
Yeah, because like the very last example was a reharm, but the rest was just different ways of executing it. And it has nothing to do with chords. And yes, reharms are very cool, and having like a surprise movement can be very efficient. But if there's no like, even then there are no rules, but I feel like a nice melody is so important. It's just so important.
Yeah, you know, in one of the other interviews, somebody was asking, like, in the context of like urban science and Cypher, like how it was with David Osei that they were like, how do you come up with melodies, memorable melodies on the fly? You know, and we took a while getting into this and whatever, but I realized after the fact, like, if we had an answer to this question, we would be millionaires. Right? How do you come up with memorable? You know, it's just like, you know, so there can't really be an answer to that question. No. But it is the thing we're all searching for, that melody, that memorable you know, thing. I'm gonna put on the stream real quick. Actually, can I grab the screen share back from you?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Or do you have? Okay, it's all good. I'm just gonna show on the stream real quick Nari Soul's YouTube, just so they can go and check out her thing. And one of the video, actually the video that you get right on the landing page, is "Happy Birthday in the Style of 10 Classical Composers," which is definitely kind of like what we're talking. Whoops, I just made a little mistake on the stream, but yeah. So definitely check out Nari Soul's. There we go. Should be right now. Check out her channel. It's funny, when I first discovered her thing, I think it was like, you know, R&B as digested by a classical musician, or funk or something like that. It was one of those ones, you know. And I think I checked like out the first couple of minutes and I was like, this garbage, this classical musician can't play funk or whatever, you know, whatever it was. And then eventually I went back to one of the, or maybe it was that one, and then I finally watched the whole video, you know, because I didn't watch it all the way through. And then I was like,
worth it.
Oh my, yeah.
Because the thing is, like, today I feel it's rare for classical musicians specifically, and I might be saying complete bullshit now, but at least how I was taught when I was studying classical is like it's very rare for even advanced classical musicians to like fully understand what they're doing harmonically.
Of course,
there's obviously
yeah.
like some advanced music theory classes that usually hand in hand, but like being like a really good interpret or like classical performance like concert pianist,
Yeah.
it's not a requirement to like fully analyze, understand, but that's where I feel that she's absolutely mind blowing because it's like on such a high level. It's like it's crazy.
Yeah, I agree, and it really is. She's creating something new. Like she's achieving the goal set out. She's creating something new that is neither the old thing nor where she came from before.
Exactly.
But it still exemplifies both of those things. That it's just like, oh my god, it's incredible.
It's masterful. Like
yes,
it's huge.
So definitely check out Nari Soul. That's the YouTube channel right there. You were gonna say something?
Yeah, to add on to melody, like you were saying, like the question someone is saying, like how do you get like memories? Yeah. Sometimes like that's where the context is also important. So melody is obviously the key. I feel like whatever's going on, but sometimes the context can give meaning to the melody, where a melody can be 2 notes or 3 notes, like a very simple line that's repeated, doesn't need like that much movement, and then it repeats with a lot of other stuff going around, but that's what you remember. But on its own, it's not necessarily like interesting per se, but I don't know, like this is not the most innovative melody in the world.
You're blowing my mind, man. That's incredible.
Wow.
But yes, okay. There we go.
You know, like
yeah,
it just repeats, and you can add a lot of flourishes on it, but that's still like you won't be singing the harmonic movements. You'll be singing like the even if it's simple and it's the same line all the time, like that becomes the hook. But like if it was and then you add kick snare and you get like a very boring techno house beat.
It's funny, I was feeling that one too. I was like, oh, this could work. This could,
but if it's the same thing, I don't know, like it could have been.
But but I get the point is correct in the sense that it's yes, the melody is the most important thing, but the dressing up of the melody in using different techniques can definitely make it even more powerful. I mean, it's like, I mean, what's the classic example? One note samba, right? There's only one note. Well, for most of it, there's only one note, but because of everything else that's going on, it's super interesting. So yeah, it's true that, I sometimes give the example that it's like if you draw an outline on a blank canvas, like the outline is the melody, and then if you color in the canvas, that's the harmony. So you can color it in with different colors and give like different meaning to the melody, kind of thing. But I've tried that explanation with non-musicians, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So it doesn't help. It only helps for musicians, but not for non-musicians. We have a couple more questions. I kind of jumped over a few things here, so I just want to get back to some of the questions we've got. Norman had a few. Actually, I don't remember what this was about, but he said, I literally can only play his songs at 30 to 50% speed. Rest in peace. So he's working on it. And then he also, actually, I'll mention this first. So he said, I'm waiting for the day Nari Soul dissects Anomaly's style. That would be very, very cool, I think.
I would be just intimidated because she's amazing.
I'm so curious to see what she would pull out of your playing. Be like, oh, he does this all the time. He does this all the time.
Yeah, I do subs all the time, like all the time. That's something. I say this very frequently. If you approach every chord with a sub, sub 5, you get an Anomaly song. It's yes, it's my go-to. I've been trying to. In the most recent stuff I've been sharing, I've been avoiding it because it's in both EPs. It's there very often.
It's a little too much, but
yeah.
Well, it's kind of connected to that thing we were talking earlier about, like the density of your harmony. You know, always putting in that one extra chord. You know, but that's fine. So I'll get. He has two other questions that he had here. One was just a kind of a simple one. One question: does Anomaly have perfect pitch? And then the second question was, what's Anomaly's approach to playing outside?
No, I do not have perfect pitch. I do
okay,
not.
Next question. No, but you do have very good relative pitch.
Yeah, and I guess at that point, like a lot of people do. I think it's very achievable, and it's not important to have perfect pitch.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, because if you're one note away from having perfect pitch, then that's fine. Right? Like,
sure.
If you're in a live context, you play one note, like, okay, now I know where everything is.
There you go.
So,
and also, like, I don't know, it varies from person to person, from the people that have perfect pitch that I've talked to, but I feel like because perfect pitch is like, it's a very like man-made thing, right? Like, it's relative to the system that we've created, like in our tuning, but there's there's a lot of different tunings across the world. And today, like, there's a lot of artists that are exploring unconventional tunings, and it doesn't need to be obvious. But then, let's say, like, someone hears, like, is listening to like an older record, or like a lot of hip hop records where the samples like pitch up or down, it's not exactly in tune, but it doesn't matter because everything in it is in tune with every other element in a song, so it works. And even then, there's a pretty wide margin of what you can do. Like a melody that's like slightly higher in pitch and another element will sometimes just feel brighter and more upfront and not necessarily out of tune. You listen to a lot of songs with like old school synths where like every synth is like slightly out of tune with every element, but it's somewhat like works all of it together. So I know that like some people like just that have perfect pitch just can't listen to something that's like not in 440, A440. But why? Like, that's if you were trained to have perfect, if like your reference for perfect pitch was another tuning, 440 would be the one that's not tolerable. So I don't know. It's not a case for everyone, but to me, like, that's an argument that kind of proves that not having perfect pitch is preferable for that instance specifically. But I've just heard like that a couple times, and then some people don't have that issue at all. But I feel like it's a very good question to what it actually means.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've discussed this with a few different people. I mean, first of all, there's also different types of perfect pitch, right? Like, there's people who are just like, oh, that's an A, you know, but they don't necessarily know that it's an A, like 3 cents flat of whatever, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have that precise of a thing. And I do understand, like, in the sense of, if you're always hearing music that's an A440, why that would bother you when it's not, you know, like, because it's just like, oh, why is it just a little off? It's like seeing two lines that are not quite correctly aligned, you know, and it's just driving you nuts. It's like an OCD type of thing.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, you're showing two lines. Like, I understand if something is out of pitch, it like you can notice it. But if like everything is just like here,
exactly.
It's all together. So like, you know.
I look, I don't have perfect pitch, so I can't, you know, but it's, how can I say? I put it this way. Let's say it's like going to a store or a restaurant or whatever, and the prices, they don't have any cents. It's just like $5 for this, 15 cents for that, whatever, you know, $3 for that, whatever. And then going to another place, and the price is like $2.74, $3.74. But like, why is it 74? Right, that would drive you nuts too, right? You're like, why is this? You know. So from that perspective, I can be like, okay, you know, I can see how this is. Yeah, but it is.
Well played.
Well, I'm always trying to put myself in the heads of other people. So, you know, I'm trying to understand them. Understand the world. You know.
Very, very nice of you. I tried to do that as well, but I didn't in this example. I'm sorry.
You're very anti-perfect pitch. I can see it. I can see it. I can see it. But anyway, so in short, Anomaly does not have perfect pitch, but he does have very good relative pitch. There was a second question. Oh, right. What's Anomaly's approach to playing outside? Yeah. And J Ray is on the stream as well. I think he said that was insane. I think it was with regards to when you were playing the melody and giving different examples of how to do it.
Oh, sweet.
So shout out to J Ray.
Nice.
Anyway, sorry, your approach to playing outside.
Yeah, so I don't consider I don't think I play outside that much. And even so, okay, so
well, almost the first question is like, what is playing outside?
Yeah.
So which I'm not even sure the answer, but anyway, go ahead.
Me neither, because like I feel like there's always a way to explain everything, but then you can get like really, really nerdy into like deep theory. So sometimes it's not something you want to get into. Like very often, like some people in jazz that start playing outside, it's literally like just a semitone or a tone above the scale of the scale that you're in. So let's say I'm playing like a G major 7. I would do like I played like a very similar scale, like one tone above it, and then let's say it feels outside because it's out of tune, and like because it's just like the same thing but like one tone above it. So sometimes it can create an impact, and then it's very once again like for the melody we were talking about it previously, it depends on the context. So I think Jacob Collier has already said this, where like anything can work, but you need to resolve it eventually. So you can create like some crazy because you ended and then like okay, it's over now. I think that was I don't know if that answers the question, but
I think it sort of does. There's a comment that we got from Mo, and Mo said Rob should come and answer. LOL. Rob Araujo should come over and answer.
He would be a very good person to explain it, but he very often does what I just did, which is just the same scale, like one tone. Honestly, that's pretty much Rob's outside playing, is the same scale, whether it's pentatonic or mixolydian or whatever it is, just above the key that you're currently on.
I think well, okay, so my not that anybody gives a shit what my take is, but
yes, I do.
No, but I mean, the reason why I said like I don't even know what that means in terms of playing outside is in the sense of like, well, it's what you were saying about theory. It's like you can explain anything. So if you can explain something, is it still outside? You know what I mean? If you're like, oh, I'm playing a semitone above, now there's a structure and it's clear that and I'm going to resolve it and I'm going to whatever. So is it still, and I'm not even sure. My take is that you can do certain kinds of exercises like working specifically on playing a semitone above, a tone above, certain kinds of different harmonic substitutions and all this kind of thing. But that's just kind of to open up your ears as much as possible. And then the idea being that when you play, stuff comes out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
you don't always worry about it.
You don't worry about it, and you know that it's just gonna, you know what? It comes back to melody, that the power of the melody is gonna make it work no matter what,
Right.
Because if you did that exact same thing, like playing a semitone above or whatever, but your melody sucked, well, then it's not gonna work no matter how much you try it, and like maybe like the reason why they said Rob Araujo should come is that Rob has got killer melodies. Like he's like
melodies. He's a king. Yeah. Leads and building solos, or there's a very clear lead,
very clear,
and like let's say halfway through the solo, you're like you like take the pattern, move it up, and then you'll like come back to the key that you're in, or like to the harmonic language that you're in, and like it's like building a pattern, like taking the same thing, bringing it up, whether it's like harmonically or not. Sometimes like playing around upper triad extensions can feel like it's out, but it's actually very much a part of like the chord that you're like that can create a sort of similar effect, but not as much. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's like the people get so hung up on the inside and outside, or just the outside aspect of it, and forget
Right.
that the reason why it works is like you gave several examples there where you played something out and then you came back with a super, like, either a bluesy phrase or a super beboppy phrase or whatever that
Right.
just like re-grounds it, and you have to kind of have those groundings, otherwise the outside is not interesting, you know.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's just my
outside of the key, and it doesn't.
yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to answer, dude.
I feel like the answer is well, the answer, not the part of the answer is in the idea of that music has to communicate structure somehow, you know. And so if you have enough structure in one element, then you can take another element and pull it in a totally different direction, you know.
Right.
Like if you're gonna, like if you have everything going in all directions, then it's just noise. And like if we thought that I mean, like the outside thing, just listen to a beginner and you'll be like, oh, they're super outside, you know. But it doesn't sound good because it's
so, like,
not
out
grounded.
of tune. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so terrible, you know. So yeah, I think the answer is in like having some element of structure and then some element that is not. But this has to be so strong that you can, and that's the reason why you can pull that other thing out.
Right.
At least for
Well
me.
said.
I mean, you
I
know,
I really agree.
yeah. And like I also listen to a fair amount of like free improvisers and stuff like that. And again, like I'm not into it if it's just like if it has no direction, which again to me is like structure, you know. And so there has to be some kind of sense of direction in what's going on. So anyway, that's just
Beautiful.
take on it. Let me just see if there was any follow-ups on that one. But oh wow, there are. So Edwin Livigane is also on the stream right now. Shout out to Edwin. Norman says Rob Araujo's playing outside is so spicy, and he says my quest is to expand my musical vocabulary, and for me, outside is relative to pop's 4-chord clear resolutions. I'm still learning jazz, and I wish I could see what choices are available to me the way Anomaly and Rob have. When he comes up with 10 ways to harmonize, I might just have 3 or 4.
You got it, Norman.
Yeah, I mean 3 or 4. We all started with 3 or 4 at some point, you know. So you know, there's and you know what? Actually, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier in the sense of transcribing. You know, so if you're not happy with how many ways you have of approaching a chord, transcribe somebody that has some cool harmonic movement, and then you'll get like one new movement that you're like, oh, this is cool. And then and what's also for me, what's interesting about that is sometimes you, like you just said, like you always put the 5 chord, you know, in front of something else. You know, people may not hear that and may be like, what is that crazy chord he's playing? And then they figure out, oh, it's just a 5. But then they think, you know, I don't go a little deeper, and it's like, oh, it's the way the voice leading works, or it's an altered 5 chord, or what, you know. So
and inversions as well. Inversions are very, very powerful. If something doesn't have to be complicated to sound like it's like an interesting movement. And you say like Norman was saying, like you know, like 3 or 4 ways of approaching it. Like I feel like a good thing to keep in mind, and this is obviously not a rule, but it's the way I try to tackle this. Like when you're trying to incorporate new stuff in your vocab or you're doing transcriptions, I think it's a good idea to like focus on one thing at a time and be patient as well. Like for it to really become a part of your language and your go-to stuff. If you like focus on one new chord type of like passing chord or approach in your practice session, and then you repeat it over, and you're not doing like several at once. You're only doing that, let's say, like in all keys in different contexts, and then progressively, eventually, it becomes a part of it. And I think that's like a really big part of adding that to what you're able to do, is taking it like one thing at a time. It makes such a difference instead of like trying to tackle a bunch of stuff at the same time.
I agree completely. You know, I think it's also, you know, there's the physical aspect of playing an instrument, but there's also the human instrument and your ears, right? So if you're working on, especially if we're talking about harmony, you know, if you're working on this one thing, if you're working on 10 different harmonic movements, how are you going to ever remember what those sound like? You know, how are you ever going to really get that in your ears?
Exactly.
So yeah, I agree. Working on one, I mean, look, if you just earlier you said you'll preface a chord with a with a 5, so if you do preface a chord with a 5, preface a chord with the tritone sub of the 5, and then like putting the 2 before the 5, or putting another dominant chord before the 5, like this is already like a ton of stuff. Now, even actually, just forget that. Sorry, I'm gonna start all over. Just put the 5 before the 1. Think of all the alterations you can put on that 5. And just work on that. Yes. Yeah, just work on that and the voice leading of it, and that's already like tons of harmonic knowledge that you can be putting into your stuff. There you go. Yeah.
All the same.
Each one of those, same thing, but they all sound different. So
inversions.
Yeah, exactly.
Movement with the same chord.
Absolutely. So please do go deep and don't just actually that maybe is the one danger of the YouTube era, although it was always a danger, but it's the one danger. It's like there's so much information out there and we forget that it's not about who has the most information. Adam Neely is great, but but you got to actually learn how to play that. You got to actually be able to execute, and so that's about playing the same. Like how many hours did you how long did it take you to learn all of your major scales? So you got to just work and work and work and work on that same thing over. So anyway, we have a couple more questions in here, which I think are related. Yes, absolutely. Actually, the two questions we have are almost quite similar. So one is from Mo, who asks, do you still practice classical music these days? Please give me some tips to improve my piano skills. And J. Ray asks, what was your practice routine like when you took your playing to genius level?
Dude.
So go for it.
I do go back to classical. Well, I did mention Nare Sol earlier.
Yes.
She definitely made me like revisit some of that repertoire. Before I go into like the routine, I especially like with the I know like a lot of people have been messing around with like mental health during the quarantine, and I think it's really important to take care of your mental health. And sometimes like being away from music, if like it drives you crazy, can be really, really, if not like as important as getting a solid routine. So just a little tip to throw out there. But for me, it's always been about just being like as regular as possible. I guess like during like when I was like doing the contest and stuff, I would do like a full day of practice. But nowadays it's mostly just about keeping up with the habit of it and trying to keep it varied. So like I'll focus like on one concept, maybe like do an hour session or something, and then switch back to making sounds or working on a song. Then I'll switch to like listening to music. Then I'll switch to transcriptions. Then I'll like go back to mixing. And then I'll do like another practice sessions later in the day or something like that. Then the next day it'll be maybe less about practicing, maybe more about like working on a sonata I'm trying to finish. And then sometimes it will be a full week that really focuses on practicing. So the major part of my day will be focusing on stuff that's related to that. So for me, there's like no definitive answer except for like just making it a habit and just keeping up with it. Because if it's like really like every session is close to each other, it's much easier to incorporate new stuff and remember everything, both your like hand memory and your actual brain memory.
Right. I mean, I can't what's the word I'm looking for? I cannot emphasize enough if you're a younger developing musician, how important it is to put in that time now, in the sense of like you just said, like when you were doing these competitions, you were practicing like the whole day, and nowadays you got like an hour, and that's just kind of the realities of life, so the reality is that you're going to be, I know tons of older musicians who are still pushing and pushing and pushing and getting it better and better and better. However, the reality is when you're young, that's the time to really
right.
But go for it.
But even then, so I guess like if you're gonna do like a full day, which I've never like really enjoyed, because I feel like at some point the concentration is just not there anymore, and sometimes you're like just not aware anymore of like what you're doing. There's like there are different stages of concentration and focus, and I feel like usually when you start the first period that you have, whether it's like 45 or 30 minutes of that session, usually for me at least, for a lot of people, is like the one where you're actually incorporating the most like information into your brain. So like I feel, and this is very personal, you don't have to agree with me, but I feel like multiple sessions, for me at least, tend to be more efficient than like one huge block where like maybe the second half or third quarter, if you're like super focused, is like not really worth it. Like taking breaks and coming back with like a fresh take on what you're working on, whether it's writing or songwriting or composing or producing, I feel like it makes a really big difference. And even on a bigger scale of things, I've been so caught up on certain things I was working on. Like I took a couple of days off, like went biking and stuff, and then came back and had like some fresh ears and a completely new perspective on what I was working on. And I feel like that's really, really important as well.
Yeah, I agree 1,000,000%. There's always the story of like waking up in the middle of the night with an idea because, having distance from the thing. And we also, it's critical. And it's also, we don't want to, it's critical. So give it some distance. I also always would tell like my beginner students, like it's much better to practice like 5 minutes a day than like the day before the lesson you practice for 2 hours. Like who cares? That's not valuable. So regularity, do a little bit at a time. And there was somebody else, Mary Cately, a bass player with Urban Science, that took a lesson with somebody. And she was saying that one of the things that guy said, Bobby Lewis said, was, this should be interpreted but what he said was, practice what you want. And that can be taken the wrong way and just be like, oh, I'm just gonna do anything, but it's like, I get what he's saying. It's like you can get hung up, like you said, that last half hour or that last 3/4 of the session that is just useless. Well, why did you even bother? Just go and take that bike ride, go and do some other thing. That's going to be much better for you as a human being, and your music is part of you as a human being. And
there's still some work like being done in the back of your mind while you're doing that, because it's still fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. So so that I think is pretty much the advice we have in terms of that. I have a few more comments here. Carrie Laudadio. I'm really sorry if I'm messing up these names, by the way. Carrie Laudadio says, great concert in Toronto. Loved coming to see you play and being part of the learning session. Amazing how much you teach, share and teach and inspire. And Norman Tran says, I feel like I'm collecting movements like Pokemon.
So, thank you so much, Carrie.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Norman, that's very cool.
For everyone who's listening in, and it is kind of like that. Like oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. Do you know that the violin player that did the Dilla orchestral arrangements?
Yes, but no. Yes, but no.
I'm blanking on his name right now, but oh my god, how could I? Anyway, but he has. You're googling it right now.
Is it the suit for Ma Dukes?
Yes. You got the name?
Is it Miguel?
Yes, Miguel
Ferguson?
Atwood Ferguson. Yes, yeah. Thank you. So Miguel Atwood Ferguson, great. And if for those listening, if you haven't checked out the suite for Ma Dukes and
so good.
Miguel, it's so happening. But Miguel Atwood Ferguson has something called the Phrase Codex. I don't know if you've heard of this, but he has a PDF file that's hundreds of pages long, where he has little transcriptions of phrases that he's liked over the years, and it's like, I wonder actually if there might be an Anomaly phrase in there. I have no idea. I don't know, but it'll be everything from like Bud Powell to like, to people today or whatever. And it's just this massive thing. And he's like, I just go through it and I'm like, every day I'll pick like 3 phrases and just work through them. And then, pick another thing. And then when I hear a nice phrase, I'll put it in the book,
I love that.
It's having, I think everyone to some degree has, all musicians have some form of note taking, whether it's on that level or on other levels. But collect those Pokemon, Norman. That's what I can say. Collect those Pokemon. Okay, let me just see where I should go from here. Actually, we're talking about music and technique, and we're talking a little bit about the fans and stuff. working on your stuff. I'm curious, do you have like, I mean, I don't want you to necessarily put you on the spot here, but do you have like a favorite cover of your music, like somebody that did a version and you're like, oh my god, this is like the best version I've ever heard, or a reimagining, or like
there's a lot of covers that I've really enjoyed. People have been super creative with them, but back when Métropole Part 2 came out, we had like the jam contest for Notre West.
Yes,
and,
that's true. Yeah, actually, I should put that on the stream.
Yes.
If you go on Anomaly's Instagram, I believe, you can find a bunch of the covers. I'm just going to put this on.
So the winner was Cisco Swank, or Swank, sorry. He has like a really dope project. He's an amazing keyboard player and beat maker, and I remember his take was really cool to me with some amazing harmonic vocabulary. But also Sophie Mark's vocal take on it. She's right there.
Is that yes, yeah.
That was really cool because hearing like lyrics and vocals on that song, which was like with an instrumental theme, I thought it was a really creative approach and take on that. That was definitely a favorite of mine.
I'm afraid to click on any of these and have them flagged by content ID, but please do check Anomaly's Instagram page. As we spoke about Jam of the Week a few times, and this is one of the familiar faces from Jam of the Week, you know. So definitely check it out. All this stuff. Yeah, I mean, there have been so many interesting and imaginative versions, and actually I'm kind of drawing into this. How did you find the whole experience of playing with Electro Deluxe and doing like massive big band versions of your music?
That was really legendary. That's like always been a goal of mine. Like I'd really like to eventually maybe have like an orchestral version, where like partnering with an orchestra. But this was so cool. They were really nice. Like when we first like did the first rehearsal and just I brought the scores. They had like, I think done like one rehearsal before I had landed, and I just showed up and it was like, it was surreal hearing it, like the produced track, but like with this formation.
Yeah,
it was really nice, and their concert was so good. I had like this very small moment during the full Electro Deluxe show at l'Olympia.
So was it? Did you write the charts yourself, or was it something that they arranged?
So nice. It was my arrangements, and then I got like some suggestions and comments from the horn section.
Right.
And then
it
was very cool.
It's awesome. I loved. I checked that out. I was like, oh my god, that must have been the greatest thing ever.
It was a very powerful feeling.
I'm sure. So I mentioned a few times that I was like playing things without the sound on because I didn't want it to get flagged. I'm kind of curious, like when you put out reharms, rearrangements, covers, and all this kind of thing, do you go through the trouble of like licensing things properly, or do you just kind of assume that if it goes down, it goes down? Because you don't release them on like Spotify or anything, you know?
No, and even then I could, because I'm never using the master recordings. But
do you license like this is a derivative work, and you know what I mean? Like
sure. So I haven't actually distributed any covers yet or arrangements, but I will for the next project. And for that, you just register it as a cover of another artist, and it splits you basically just don't get a big part of the royalties, but the master recording is yours of that version.
Of course.
So it's very easy to set up. Where it gets tricky is when you're using the master recording. That's a lot of trouble to clear.
Yes, absolutely. But have you, like for any of the things that you've already got on YouTube or on Instagram that are covers, or how does that, actually I'm not even sure how that works. Do you have to clear it, or do you have to, like technically, do you have to clear when you're doing a cover?
When you're doing a cover, sure. I don't think so, but I think you might get a claim, but that doesn't take it down. It's just like sends the future royalties generated by that video to the initial songwriter, or like the person who owns the songwriting copyright. That's what I think, but I'm unsure.
Yeah,
'Cause
actually, you know what?
the Instagram videos they don't generate revenue.
Right, revenue. Yeah.
The Facebook ones, a lot of pages don't. Some do.
Right.
And then obviously YouTube has ads, but
Right.
I really don't know.
Actually, I thought about it further, and I think, in fact, I'm certain that technically the copyright remains with the original person, right? Because it is
Yes.
and so whether you're making money from it or not doesn't matter. They could request it to be taken down, because it did happen actually to Lex French, who plays in the brass band. He had a band that did a Rihanna cover, Umbrella, I think, or something like that, and there's a total replaying of the tune by a brass band. It doesn't use master recording at all, and it was on SoundCloud, which they didn't make any money off of, and there was actually a legal takedown notice. So yeah, it can happen.
That's not cool. Like, I feel like you have nothing to gain when you do that. That's why, like, I'm not worried about that, because most people view it like as a tribute. It gets like a little bit more intricate if someone's distributing it without someone's consent, and then they're making money off of it. That's like another story. But a video cover, it's like, why would you even bother?
Yeah.
It's cool that they did that in the first place. It to me, it's like, it's an older mentality of the music industry, and it's like not up to date with what's currently being done.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically, they have the rights and all this, but yeah, if you think of,
you're not like ripping, like you're giving the proper credit. Not mentioning the original artist, that can be pretty insulting.
Sure, if you're trying to pass it off as your own thing.
That's not cool. That's not cool.
Yeah.
But like when you're giving the proper credit that's due, and it's basically a tribute to that artist with that artist's own touch. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Weird.
I mean, it's like, if you think about it, like a lot of your success initially was based on doing, a Stevie Wonder tune or whatever.
Exactly.
And you think of, I think Noah did some reharms, or maybe I'm wrong about that, but definitely Pomplamoose was famous for doing reharms and all this, and they created their whole career off of it.
It was so cool.
It was the best thing,
Yes.
So, and it's sort of, kind of related to this, we have a question from Mo, who asks, do you have any plans to make a song with lyrics? Are you a lyricist?
Not me. So I don't plan on making my own lyrics, but I am working with singers and lyricists for the next project. So exciting.
Oh, really? Okay,
yes.
Okay. I thought you just meant in general, but okay.
No.
I guess you can't give us any information, or can you? Or I don't know.
Yeah. So the one that I'm currently wrapping up, I've been wrapping up for a while actually, but I'm wrapping it up. It's a short collab EP with Chromeo. They're a funk duo from Montreal, now in LA, New York. So it's a 3-track project that's coming out this fall with them, and I won't be dropping names, but for the first Anomaly LP, there will be singers, on it.
Okay.
I'll wait a little bit before I name drop those.
So look out for that. I mean, I don't know if I should. I don't know how those interviewers try to get like the inside scoops. Like, oh, what about? Is it? But I am very curious to know who is going to be on that. I'm sure everybody is. You know what? And I don't think. Well, look, I don't know anything about it, so this can't possibly ruin anything. But putting out covers or reimaginings of other people's music is a great way of getting in contact with those people.
Yes.
So if you put out a crazy version of XYZ by some artist, and then they really like it, and they're like, "Hey, I'm working on a new album that." So maybe go back through that Instagram, and maybe you'll know who's on that track list for the new album.
A lot of people's like big breaks were through covers and stuff, or not necessarily like big breaks, but just like gradual stuff and gaining visibility. Like I remember like Kaytranada's big thing was like the Janet Jackson remix on SoundCloud, which blew up, and then she contacted him, and like you never know, and even then, like right away you're like reaching people who know that artist or know the song already, so you're like already widening your audience when you're starting out, let's say. And it's a really, really good way to explore your own arrangement skills and sound, and try some new stuff. I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, Absolutely. And it also kind of ties into what we were talking earlier about melody being king, right?
Yes.
You got a strong melody already, so
it's there.
It's there. So just dress up the rest.
Yeah.
There's a few people that joined the stream. V2 Turbo Promtep is there, and Teo Abelard is there as well. Says Nico. So shout out to everybody joining the stream. Again, we are taking questions at any moment, so feel free to put one down in the comments. And if you know who's on that next album, man, let's spoil it right now. Put them down there. Let us know who's on that album that you think is on that album. Actually, is there a name to the new album or a release date-ish? Or no? Okay, not yet.
No,
All right.
the imminent project is the Chromeo EP.
Right. Well, definitely looking forward to that. Yeah. Why don't we take like a little step backwards and talk in terms of releases? Talk about Métropole a little bit. I guess, was it always your idea to kind of pay tribute to your city? Was that kind of something that you had initially set out to do, or was it like a case of a few things corresponding to things in the city and then kind of formulating it around that? Like, how did that all work?
Yeah, I guess it was not. I didn't like start a project and think right away like, all right, I'm gonna do like this whole project is gonna be like a tribute to Montreal. It kind of came together like naturally, where well, first of all, so I'm not a lyricist. I don't have like a very clear, explicit message or story to share. So right off the bat, like it's more about like an impression or feeling or like an inspiration that can be like much more vague, and then obviously the listener can translate that. Even when they're lyrics, every person can like associate a song with a moment in their life or something they're feeling when they're down or super excited. And for my music specifically, like I like walking around the city. I like biking, and I have like a very strong attachment to Montreal. So it was definitely like a big inspiration in terms of like themes for the music. But it's not, like I said, it's like not super important or explicit, and you don't need to know that to enjoy the music and listen to it. So it's like secondary, but it's still important to me.
I'm curious about the tune Le Blurry and what the story is. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, well, Le Blurry is obviously a mythic place where. So I said much earlier in the stream, that like being a part of the house band was like Urban Science was like a game changer for me, because it made me like discover like this whole new thing, and like I said, like creating on the spot with musicians and the repertoire and the whole experience and the adrenaline and the long nights. I thought it was like a whole package, and the space itself. I mean, I really like Bootlegger, but it's really cool. But Le Blurry had something to it, and for me it was like almost like a rite of passage. Like it marked like a transition in my life, and I just feel like a strong connection with that place, and it was like. At moments it felt like a second home in some ways, because it was like very warm and homey.
Because we were falling asleep on the couch in the back.
It's exactly very solid point. And I guess like this track had like this bounce to it that I felt like made sense with like the nights that we spent there. Other than that, like no direct like relation or there's not like a specific story, but it's like every track, it's mostly like a feeling and an impression or like a state of mind or emotional state. So
right. I asked this question because I was like, I've with instrumental music, it's sometimes very difficult to title things, because it's so ethereal in terms of like a feeling. It's like a color or something. How do you name a color,
right?
But for me, sometimes if I'm writing something, I might come up with the title like halfway through, and the title might help me finish the song, because it kind of like formulates it. So I was just kind of curious, like whether it was first the title or later, or what, or how that all worked. But it seems like it was kind of a little bit of both.
I relate to what you just said. It happens for sure. But then sometimes it's just once it's finished, I know like it's very clear what it needs to be. Sometimes it's as soon as I start the idea, all right, this is going to be the title.
Right.
But it's like, it's not like, all right, so when the verse is playing, this is referencing the time that I fell in the street, and then like it's...
right. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious. Like, you must have tons of like unreleased sketches of songs and stuff.
a lot, yes.
Yeah. Do a lot of them? Do they have names, or do they just have like
Usually it's
thing?
Yeah, it's weird names. Let me pull up my folder. Sometimes it's like Latin-ish, and then the tempo. Sometimes
Right.
it's space, laid back. Sometimes it's banger. There's one called Snoop. There's one called Bass Riff. There's one
Right.
called Boom. There's one called Little Thing. You know, it's...
Yeah. So it is really, for you, it's really based around the musical, and I mean musical in the sense of like note content or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this one is spacey. This one reminds me of Snoop Dogg. You know what I mean? It's not like this reminds me of you know, the corner of de Maisonneuve and Saint Denis. You know what I mean?
No,
You know?
usually not.
No,
no.
I was just curious. Yeah.
Right.
We have a couple of more questions. I have one here. Or actually, this is just more of a comment, but I'll pass it along. Sean Tran says, "What up, Anomaly? Y'all made me tear up at the Fox Cabaret in Vancouver. Hope you're doing well in quarantine. Lifelong fan over here, bro."
So thanks so much, man. Take care.
Yeah, shout out to Sean. And shout out to everybody in quarantine and dealing with this very difficult situation. You know, we hope to all be back playing live music soon, but it might take a while.
Yes,
anyway, I just wanted to mention that because a few people have mentioned that so far, and of course it's a thing in everybody's head. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about like the sort of the past. We talked a little bit about like new album, which has vocals, which already is a very interesting development. Not that it's the first time you've collaborated with vocalists, but you know, in terms of your project, you know, it's the first time.
Yeah.
And I guess I originally had a question about like what's the next step, but maybe my question now, because the next step clearly is the Chromeo album and then your own album. How far ahead do you plan things, or do you like? I mean, clearly there is some planning in, and I'm not talking about playing. I'm just talking about like career wise. Are you like, you know what,
Sure.
in 10 years I want to do a thing with it? Well, I guess you've already done a thing with a big band, but you know, like I want to do this type of thing or that type of thing, or do you, and maybe another question would be like, do you plan on like continuing to be a touring musician, if you know what I mean? Because you've explored a lot of different things, and it's not necessary to, and well, also maybe this tied into COVID too, like, hey, who knows how that stuff is going to work in the next couple of years, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to me, there's nothing like touring, and especially with the
Sure.
crew and band and that we have together. It's definitely something I want to keep on doing for a long time. Maybe not for my whole life. I don't know if like I'll keep on doing Anomaly for the rest of my life, but I can see myself like doing this for the foreseeable future at least.
Right.
As far as like long-term goals or dreams, I've mostly been about midterm goals pretty much always, and then sometimes short-term as well. But for some people, long-term works because it gives them like an additional drive or something to aim for. For me, it's always been like too vague, or it can seem like too hard to reach, and I've been like much more closer to what was going on and trying to build something like in the close future. And it's worked for me, just for it's how I function and how I see things. So we usually have like a flexible timeline. We have like deadlines for like, let's say, I don't know, like delivering a mix, and then depending on when that's done, we'll like plan the touring and marketing campaign accordingly. Like that's like the very concrete stuff. But like as far as, I don't know, like goals, there's the orchestra thing. I know that like at some point I'd like to do like an orchestral project, whether it's like an adaptation of something I've already released, or like a full-on new project with an orchestra. That's a goal that I have, and whenever it happens, I will be very happy to do it. But then honestly, I'm just happy to just keep on creating, and especially like since obviously there's been quarantine, but even before that I was already considering on taking a long touring break, because this has been mostly about exploration for me, and I haven't been really like thinking about a plan. We do talk about it once in a while, but for me, it's been coming up with cool textures, keeping up with my practice, and trying to explore new avenues that I could, come up with and try to explore what the next Anomaly chapter is. And so I don't have like an answer, but once it's out, you'll hear. But
right, of course. Yeah, there is also the thing of not wanting to give away too many secrets in advance if you have some little plans in there. Yeah. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's mostly about that. I can just say, like, let's say like the Chromeo project is like a sort of like in between, where it's closer to some of the stuff that I've already done before, but it's also a mix with Chromeo sound, which I think is going to be pretty fun. Whereas at least so far, the album is more about like trying to go out of get out of the lane that I was in, but still making sense with the Anomaly sound, but trying to approach certain elements in a completely different way. But obviously it's still me, so I guess it will still sound like Anomaly, but I don't know.
All right, you heard it here first. The new Anomaly album is a country western album, 100% new direction. Although I love country western music, but anyway, it's an easy target. But I actually I find that very interesting, and I'm kind of curious. Like you mentioned, for example, the orchestra thing. I'm kind of curious. I guess you've kind of answered it. Is like how you're going to approach that in the sense of, will it be the familiar Anomaly sound, or will you be like, I wonder whether you'll look like you'll move in a totally different direction at some point, because obviously you have, and we all have influences from all over the place, and I just wonder whether, I don't like, maybe there will be a country western album, like, you know what I mean, like, why not, at some point. But are there kind of like are there directions that people would be surprised to see you move in, that you're interested in moving in at some point?
I don't know.
Or is it really like your sound is like, this is the sound I'm going for like the rest of, you know what I mean? Like,
I honestly can't answer it because I don't know where like the creative process will take me. I guess like whatever I do, even if it's for someone else, will always sound like me. Like every artist or creator has their signature, whatever they do. There's definitely like some ideas that I come up with, and I'll say like, this is not something that's Anomaly sounding. Even like some stuff will be quite different, but I still think like it makes sense on the project. Some ideas I come up with, and also like I'll send this to somebody else or make something else with it, because like I just won't use it for myself because it's a cool exercise. But yeah, it's too different. Exactly. I won't make a country west album.
But I mean, so it's interesting that you said you'd give it to other people. So I mean that makes sense. But I wonder whether you might have things put aside that you're like, oh, this is for like that rainy day X project, and it's got a whole bunch of miscellaneous tunes and different kinds of is there a kind of a miscellaneous folder on the Anomaly desktop computer?
There's a very big idea folder with a bunch of stuff that I maybe will never use, but like I have like a color system where there's like the ones I definitely want to keep. There's the ones that I might keep. So those, especially like the ones that are in the I might keep section that I won't use on the project, like that I might keep for rainy day X something, or
Right. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Let's see. I mean, there's so many. I also, I don't know how you're feeling right now, if you're tired or what. But we can also start wrapping this up. It's really up to you. I have tons of questions, but I don't want to I don't want to abuse this opportunity.
I don't mind.
All right. Well, I'll keep going, but feel free to say whatever. Okay. Here's something I'm kind of curious, because I was reading this. I forget where I read this, but basically like the music you do is very much so. We're talking about styles and all this, and I feel like it's very much obviously jazz influenced and classical music influenced and electronic. But what I really wanted to say was that it includes sounds from today, or more contemporary sounds and sounds from today, very much so in the sound. And people sometimes refer to that as fusion, and you yourself has referred to it as fusion sometimes. And there are many people who don't like fusion music, and sometimes just when they hear the name fusion, like, you know. And I think that often has to do with, well, I think it has to do with two things. One is like the types of sounds. Like if we go to like fusion that was in the 80s or 90s,
Right.
it sometimes sounds very dated, you know.
Yeah.
And then some people also feel that fusion is like an excuse to just show off chops, you know, just lots of chops, you know. So I'm just curious how you feel about that, and whether you think it's true in your case, or if you disagree.
I definitely agree with the dated part of some fusion albums. There's a lot of really great music that's been made in that era, and it's so hard to like predict, like, will your music be dated in 20 years, and then sometimes there's like a comeback like 10 years after it's suddenly like the hip thing, because it's like it becomes popular again, either just like by a random trend or through another form of media like film or something else. It just becomes hip. So I have no idea like what to answer to that part specifically. As far as like what I'm doing, I mean, I've been influenced by some jazz fusion albums, and there's like I don't know, like maybe the performance aspect with synths, which was like synths being performed live was like a fusion thing, but then today it's like a everything thing. It's like it's just a part of like a lot of genres, but for a while that was kind of the thing. So am I answering it, or should I'm not sure where
I think,
my ideas
I
are
think so.
headed now.
Well, you know, I think any of these questions is just to kind of spur a conversation. You know, but well, I think in terms of the datedness, it's obviously we never know with the time, right? Because in the time, like we like, you know, the one, okay, if we look at music today, which you're not necessarily very influenced, or I don't think you're very influenced by, but if you're thinking of like trap music, which is like the sound we hear in every single tune of any style nowadays,
it's huge.
Like it's huge, but clearly in a certain amount, well, maybe not, maybe we're wrong, maybe that's a universal sound that will always kind of be you know, that people want to come back to. But I feel like that's a sound in 20 years that people are like, oh yeah, that thing, you know, that was cute. You know,
I think that one, probably because of how everywhere it is, it'll be probably easier to pinpoint, like you said, like the era of trap music. But I think it's great. It's just at some point when there's so many people that copy like the initial person that started, it becomes like it's just bound to become dated at some point. But I guess like on a smaller scale, because I think trap is much more mainstream that, let's say, like dubstep was. But I feel like the same thing kind of happened with dubstep, where dubstep was everywhere, it was huge, it was like in commercials and stuff, but it didn't really last that long, like the really big trend and hype. And then a bunch of producers like copied each other, and then everyone was doing it. There were a couple pioneers, and then like it was just over. And then like it evolved like in like various subgenres of electronic music, and then some people are still making like evolved or like modified versions of it, and it's still like thriving into their like niches and like own like musical worlds, and they have like their touring and fan bases and stuff. But like the huge phenomenon, I guess maybe there's like a comparison to be made between that and trap.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm almost asking an impossible question in the sense of like, how do we know? It's like the how do you come up with great melodies question. It's like, how do we know that something is gonna be dated? You know,
it's impossible. But
yeah,
you can guess, and then I don't know.
There was an interview, I want to say it was with Branford Marsalis, but I could be completely wrong about that. But it was asking, or somebody was asking him like, I want to get this right, but it was about like how to know if, like, okay, he was basically, I think he was talking about his students, and you know, we all are trying to like find new sounds and find new, you know, find the new thing, and his complaint was like the students weren't checking enough of the tradition and blah blah blah. But I
was
think,
it the comment regarding Robert Glasper?
I don't recall, but I think what he was I'm trying to get this right, and it's kind of confused in my head right now, but he was no, it was not, because he was saying that, you know, people are always trying for the new sound, and on the other hand, they don't like this or they don't like that. And it's like, man, if something is truly new, odds are you're not gonna like it. If it's truly new, you're not gonna like it. So I thought that was very interesting. It was, right. And he was including himself. He was like, yeah, odds are I'm not gonna realize it's good. It's gonna be anyway. So in a way, that's tied in a sense of like, how are we supposed to? We all want to make like immortal music that lasts the test of, forever. People come back and they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. But we could also be making the cheesiest tune that people are like, oh my God, this is just not. So
it's impossible to predict, but I think it's really interesting because like there is nothing that is completely new because we're all like copying in some form, which
Absolutely.
is okay, and then being influenced by what we hear. And then sometimes there's like a new current that has like a specific new element to it. But then the foundation or like the harmonic movement or the way the lyrics are written or will be referencing something that's already been made. And that's just part of art in general, whatever it is. And it's okay. It's okay to, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you do something like really properly and it corresponds to what you want, what you have to say and what you want to share, just do it. It's okay.
Well, it's almost related to like the cover thing that we were talking about earlier. It's like, yes, all music is based on what came before. And I have very mixed feelings about copyright. On the one hand, yes, I understand why it exists. I understand that people should be paid for things. Yes, I understand. But it's like, why should I have a brass band's version that's on a free website? It's just a fun, it's a celebration of the original music without profiting off of it. So anyway, it's one of those.
Well, like we said earlier, it's a very outdated like way of thinking. And then even for the master recordings, like I can sort of understand where it gets a little bit more intricate, but specifically for like music that heavily relies on sampling, like hip hop, it kind of sucks because it's becoming like very, very limiting. The fact that you can get like just blacklisted right away. But I think like I think a couple of years ago, I think like MCs and producers came together to like create a platform to make like sampling the sampling process like streamlined and easier to get a license and stuff.
In terms of clearing samples.
Yeah, but I don't remember if it ended up working out. I'll try to make some research because I thought the idea was interesting.
Yeah. I'm very curious to
I'd like to see something like that, like be really mainstream and easy to use and accessible. I think that would be great for the culture, and it's especially like today when it's really easy to have a proper credit showed somewhere to show like the reference work that's used.
Yeah.
You don't have to hide it. You can just show it very properly, and then I think it would be great to have a system in place like that.
Are you talking about kind of like a website where it's like, I want to use this sample, it's this length, and it's for this purpose, and it costs this much to use, like a I don't know what the correct term is, but like a Uber or Airbnb, but of samples, you know what I mean?
I think that was the idea, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, if you find that, definitely share it because I'd love to.
Let me do a quick Google because I think
that sounds like an amazing tool. Although, if anybody has heard of that, then please let me know. You have it?
I don't know if it's this, but I just found TrackLib.
TrackLib?
And it says that one of J. Cole's tracks was cleared through this platform.
Okay.
I think it's this one, but I'm not sure. It definitely has evolved a lot. If this is the one,
if this is the thing,
it's like the modern. It's like it's not like a crate thing. It's really just you already come with what you already know you want to like clear. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, I mean, it makes sense that it's cool that this exists already. I'm like, oh, this is interesting, It makes sense that these kinds of tools are going to become more easily accessible. Like I don't know if you heard about the thing that Mixcloud is doing, but basically they have a new like a pro membership. Basically, Mixcloud, you could upload like very long audio tracks.
Yeah.
And so a lot of DJs were putting up like, you know,
Their DJ
multi-hour.
mixes, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they have a pro account now that costs a certain amount. And basically it gives you kind of like a radio license.
That's
so you can put
cool.
out, yeah, you could do live
was
stream.
really-
So yeah.
We really needed that for DJs because like
Absolutely.
Twitch has been like
Yes.
stopping streams because
Cracking
of
down.
DJs. That's horrible.
Yeah. So it seems like, I mean, this is one of the advantages, or not advantages, but good things that is coming out of this this situation is
Yeah.
that more and more of these solutions for like, you know, running stuff out of your home or live streaming
That's
and all this
great.
are being greatly accelerated. I mean, heck,
Yeah.
this system I'm using for this interview right now is something I knew nothing about a few months ago. So, you know, shout out to Streamlabs OBS, you know, thank you very much.
yeah.
So anyway, so that's interesting about the whole sampling thing. You know, although it kind of gets into, you know, the cost of making music and all this, I've recently been looking into certain things in terms of hardware, and I guess I'm kind of curious because you have a fair amount of gear yourself, and I'm curious about like maybe your favorite gear. Or like the total, and that could be software too, you know.
Right.
You know, curious about like the best bang for buck, like the thing that you're like, oh my god, this cost me like $100, and it was like the best thing ever. You know, talk a little bit about the gear that you use.
Right. So actually, I put a gear list on my website
nice.
of like my go-to thing. So it's anomalybeats.com/gear, and then the hyphen list. Oh no, wait. If you go on the website and then you go on contact and then there's gear list. Yeah, there you
I'm
go.
Putting it on the
So it's like the
right
stuff
now.
that I used the most.
Nice.
So I've been a push user for a couple of months now.
Mhm.
Yeah, the push was really great. It's really cool for like it gives like a sort of like MPC workflow, and it's been really great for chopping samples and stuff. My master controller, the interface, the UAD stuff is really cool because you get like no latency or near zero latency monitoring, and yet it gets like its own console app, and you get like a bunch of really cool emulations of analog hardware. Because basically there's like a circuit in the interface, and then it reproduces the voltage of the initial gear in the interface,
okay.
which is some pretty next level stuff. It's really cool. It's the one I use for the live shows and all. It's very cool for routings and stuff. Keyscape and Omnisphere, I've been like just yelling that everywhere. It's my go-to instruments. The Juno is really great. It was actually my mom's, but it's been in like in a very bad state for many years. So I actually got around and got it repaired last fall. It was quite expensive.
Why did your mom have a Roland Juno?
So my mom is a piano player. And,
yeah, I know, but
she
but
wasn't
Juno,
really,
it's like
I know. Well, she bought it like 2 years because this came out like in '86 or '85,
Okay.
and she got it like in '87 or something
Right.
because she wanted like a cool keyboard and didn't really know what to buy. So she got a
Amazing.
Juno.
Wow, incredible.
So cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't like I knew we had it when I was younger, but I didn't realize like how
What it was.
awesome this was.
Yeah.
It's really epic.
Amazing.
The little CS, the CS, well, the whole reface line is very nice. It's
Amazing line.
yeah, like for me, Yamaha is like sometimes it's really cool, sometimes I'm like meh, but the reface line is an amazing move. It's really cool. The CS and the DX are like super great, really great. You can like put batteries in it. You can just go jam in a park or something. It's really nice.
We were just talking about this last week with Shem. He's got a bunch of those pocket operators, you know.
Yeah,
so
those
the
are
whole
really
like
engineering.
Exactly, the whole move towards like battery powered little go into the park and jam with your friends, incredible, you know.
It's great.
There is at least maybe one or two, I think, videos on your Instagram with all the battery powered instruments and you know acoustic playing. So do check that out on
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, so the CS I also I like to use it like as a controller for VST synths as well, because it's very accessible. It's on my right, and I have like the go-to controls. So to have like the hands-on feel, but with software, it's very nice. The DX is like it's a smaller version of the DX legendary DX7. It's pretty much the same engine. I think it has like I don't actually know what's like not on it, but I know it works really cool. It's a pain to program, but there's like this VST called DX. Oh, I forgot the name. It's like a DX emulator, but then the patches that you make in the VST you can save and load in the hardware.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's great.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it saves a lot of time to program. Addictive Drums is really cool. I've had like just a standard like one pack of the app for a couple of years, so I've used it sometimes, but since like this fall I got other packs and really got into like percussion and drums, so I got a bunch of percussion behind me as well, and I've started like really getting into drum mixing, so like I actually realized how powerful this was. So you got like a bunch of saturation units, compressors, you got tape simulations, EQs, a bunch of like different snares, toms, hats, cymbals. So I just before I just like messed around and used a couple presets. Now I actually make my kits in the app. So you're like in full control of everything, and like you have like a bunch of different velocities. So it's like very, very versatile, and there's like a lot of layers and depth and in the quality of the sound and texture. It's very, very cool. And then the speakers, go-to speakers. A lot of people have these. The headphones are not the ones I'm currently using because they're like really, really huge. Oh, I don't know. Can you see me?
Yep, I just
okay. It's like you kind of look stupid with them, but they sound they sound really, really great. I really like it. The talk box, very nice. I started messing around with the talk box a couple of years ago and then stopped, and then I picked it up again because I was inspired by Pat from P Thug from Chromeo, because he's a killer on the talk box. So I was inspired to try it again and make my talk box arrangements. I
have very, very fond memories of Talkbox at the Cypher. It always brought it to a new level, you know.
It was very fun.
Do you use it? Oh yeah, you do use it in the show, right?
No, because I have no tracks.
No, wait, no, you don't. No, there's no vocals. Yeah, no. I mean, there's the woo and the there's a few things like that.
Yeah. I haven't used the talk box on the Anomaly releases, but there's like there's some on the next project. So
here we go. Here we go. Vocals. In fact, that was one of the questions we had from Instagram was, are you going to sing on the next album? So I guess the answer is yes. So
sort of.
sort of.
I'm not really singing, but there's some talk box action.
There's some. There you go. Your voice is audible. There you go.
Yeah. Well, no, because it's I'm just like consonants, and then this is producing the sound, so it's like cheating. The mic, it's a really cool. It's like the go-to like podcast mic. It's not too expensive and it sounds good.
Right.
I track like percussion and vocals and stuff with it. And I have like a little Zoom also that I use to record samples and then make percussion from them or stuff. And whenever, because I don't have like a good stereo mic, so whenever I want to really, really do like a cool stereo recording, I use the Zoom instead and then import it in Ableton. Various percussion. Oh yeah, expression pedals. So this is whatever model you're using. I like this one, but the Roland one is pretty good too. It's just I feel like as a keyboardist, it's a really good tool to use. Like we're used to seeing like guitar players doing like wahs and stuff, but you can assign any parameter to it on a synth, and that's huge. It frees up a hand, so it's really cool.
Yeah,
you can even use like 2, 3 if you want. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And then a little thing, it's a Behringer thing to like add inputs. I think like it's the cheapest option to add 8 inputs. It's like just a preamp. It's very cool.
See. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Valhalla, it's the king or queen of VST reverbs. It's just gorgeous, beautiful, amazing.
Your favorite reverb. To get that signature Anomaly reverb. That's it. So now this is all you
so.
need. Just buy this, and that's it. You can sound like Anomaly. That's it. That's it. You know.
I also use the Ableton stock reverb and sometimes a convolution. They're really great for what they do. But the Valhalla they have like several ones there. It's really good.
Yeah. So we had a few comments while you're going through the list. Spike says, "I wish my mom gave me a Juno." I agree with that.
I'm very, very fortunate.
Yeah.
But
he also asked about.
To be fair, so the repair cost was pretty much the same amount as like getting a new one. So.
Wait, so it was really in bad shape, or
it's
like?
Just so there was like 2 voice chips that were broken. The material that's like under the faders, it was like there's like petroleum in it. So like after a certain number of years, if you're not using it, it like begins to drip
melted
in the keyboard. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's like a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I ran into some YouTube channel where the whole thing is the guy like, taking old keyboards and fixing them up, and I'm like, oh my god, there's so many possible problems that are, anyway, it's a whole world. He also asked about a track with Talkbox. We've answered that, I think. Actually, Mo said your first single, Odyssey.
Yeah,
right. So there is Talkbox.
That's right.
Yeah.
I always forget about it because I didn't bring it like in the live set.
Right.
I never brought it. That's right.
Right. Yeah. It's that thing of like the it's like I don't know if this makes any sense, but it's like the Star Trek convention where the actor does not remember what happened, but the fans remembered. So they're like, what about this song? You used to talk back there. And you're like, oh yeah. Wow. Shout out to all the fans. And Spike also says Valhalla has a lot of free plugins too. So I guess they're really cool free plugins. So so check that out. So that's my question of gear has been answered fully. I mean, is there actually what? So you said at 15 was when you started messing around. You were messing with like GarageBand and stuff, and then you must have had a MIDI controller or something, or like what was the early setup actually? That's a question I've got.
Laptop and M audio. Cheap controller.
Some cheapo. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning. So I guess what was the first upgrade?
I think it was like good. Well, just headphones, not necessarily good headphones, but headphones. Right. Period. Then a better like an 88 key controller, like a proper one. I guess I got like I guess the interface. The interface was the first proper upgrade. Like going from no interface to one interface is a pretty significant upgrade.
Was that the Apollo Twin?
Or no. A really cheap one. This one is pretty expensive, but I use it like both for shows and at home, and I don't regret it. But this was like part of a big upgrade where I got like the speakers and this at the same time, like in a It was like my first major upgrade was this. Right.
You were like saving money to go to get that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm just looking through. I think I've almost gone through all of my questions. I
Amazing.
May have. Oh, actually, there's maybe 2 that I'd like to get into, and then we can maybe wrap it up at that point.
Yeah, perfect.
So okay. So I guess my first question, although it's weird that I'm asking it at this point in the review, but whatever, is kind of like, are you an introvert or an extrovert? And do you enjoy socializing with and meeting fans?
So I would describe myself like as a functional introvert.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny because like I feel like when in the touring environment specifically, I'm like less introvert because you're socializing more like every day, and like when you're like alone at home for a long time, you tend to like, it's just like an ability or a skill that you kind of have to keep up with. Maybe extroverts don't view that in that way at all, but I definitely notice the difference when I'm like socializing a lot every day. I'm like much more at ease, and then when I've been home for a while, I kind of have like to pick it up again. Maybe that makes me
Right.
sound like an alien, but it's, I guess, like a lot of introverts can relate to that. But I do love like meeting people after shows. I think it's really, really great, and everyone's been always like super nice and approachable, so it definitely helps. But when I'm in like a touring mindset, it's very easy and awesome. So it's very cool.
Yeah, I didn't want to. Wasn't intended to be like a loaded question or like a gotcha. Do you enjoy hanging out with you? No, it wasn't that at all. But because I kind of suspected that you're kind of more of an introvert, and people may not know, but I'm also more of an introvert, and I kind of like learned how to. Cypher. Hosting Cypher, I definitely had to learn how to do that, and it was definitely terrible at the beginning, and kind of got better over time.
Which makes sense. That's like how things go.
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, I don't think for extroverts, I think for them it just comes naturally.
Right.
But it's interesting also because you said that it's kind of like something you lose when you're like, for example, if you're at home a lot and you're working on, practicing or producing or whatever, because you're not interacting. And it's similar for me in the sense that like it definitely is like a skill that I sometimes have to use consciously.
Right.
I want, like, I remember seeing when you started doing when you went to NAM and were doing like product demonstrations, I guess,
right.
And I, like, for me it was a similar kind of experience that like enabled me to fake being an extrovert, you know what I mean? Because it's like I'm playing a character or I'm not reading a script, but like, you know what I mean? You're like,
yes,
yeah. So I just was curious whether it was a similar kind of thing with you.
For sure.
And I guess it is anyway. So that's all I had to say about that. Actually, we have a question here from Spike. I'll get to this and then I'll get to my last question.
Okay.
So Spike asks, or he says, I'm a popper that started making modern funk music a couple of years ago. I'm playing by ear, but I feel stuck because of my lack of musical knowledge. I want to learn piano. Where should I start?
YouTube.
Wow, great answer. Is there, I mean, it's funny as you as the son of a music teacher is telling somebody go to YouTube.
For sure.
But it's the new way. Yeah, I do agree.
Really
I don't actually know if there's I mean, I'm sure there's some great beginner YouTube channels for piano and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also just recently started getting ads for this thing called Melodics, which is like you hook up like a MIDI. Basically, you hook up like a MIDI controller to your computer, and then it's like a kind of like Guitar Hero, and it'll show you like what notes to play, and you kind of play along with it. Yeah, and I'm like this, and it also has like a drum pad type of thing. So whether you want to do finger drumming or playing piano, and I'm like, oh man, that actually makes a lot of sense.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by Melodics or anything. I've never even checked it out, but it sounds like it could be interesting. So,
nice.
So check that some of that stuff out. So anyway, my last question is, I know that you're also interested in gaming.
Yes.
So I'm curious about a bunch of stuff in here. I'm curious about whether you've been inspired by video games in your music, because there's a lot of video game music that is sort of related a little bit. Well, I'm curious whether you're a console player or PC player, favorite game, favorite console. Let's talk about gaming a little bit.
Yeah, I've gamed a lot during high school and CJEP, and then in the last few years, it's something I've been trying to tame. Where I've definitely played a lot during quarantine.
What are you playing right now?
I have a Switch, so I never had like a proper like PC, like gaming PC. But I did play like games on my laptop. I had like Nintendo consoles growing up, like the N64 and GameCube, and I like really late I got like a PS3 and I have a Switch. So like I never got like a gaming PC or like a new generation console except for the Switch. The Switch is basically my first like new generation console. I've been trying a couple games. I've been going back to BioShock, like the BioShock series. Those are really, really great. And recently I gave another try at Minecraft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know it's I know you can judge me.
Minecraft, I know that if I was the right age for it, I would have just gotten sucked inside of it. It would have just
Right.
been game over.
Are you saying
But
I'm a little kid?
No, not at all. I'm just saying, like, I like you said, like controlling the beast kind of thing. It's
Right.
like, it's the kind of thing, like open world games or whatever. It's the kind of thing where you could
can
just
really get lost in it.
you can get lost in that, and it's I mean, I have played Minecraft, and not as a little
okay.
kid. So
Okay.
I'm not diminishing it at all. But
I really like, and it's making like a really big comeback. So I played it when it came out, and then didn't play it at all, and then I just got it recently, and I thought it was a really good game.
Yeah, it was amazing when it first came out, and it still holds. It's Lego. It's Lego. How can that
really
not
is.
be? Yeah. And it really like changed the game. Like there are so many games now that have a concept of mining and like crafting that is more it's just standard, that your game has crafting now. It's
Absolutely.
just like a standard thing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and BioShock, I played the original. I played BioShock 1 and 2.
Did you play the 3?
The Infinite,
third one?
right?
Infinite,
No,
yeah.
I haven't played it yet. I have a ridiculous Steam library that is never going to get finished. But
wow.
anyway, but I do have 3, because I basically buy it when something comes on special on Steam. It's like it's
I get
so so I do have it, but I want to play System Shock.
What is that?
Okay, so System Shock is the game that the same developers made before BioShock.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
and apparently it's the same game, and I'm so curious to see like the original concept,
where it came from.
Where it came from,
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is why people want those old YouTube videos, that old YouTube channel. They want to know where you came from.
Oh wow.
But I kind of knew that you might be a Nintendo person, because I'm curious if you could give some context into what's going on in this photo.
Oh right. Well, I mean, we're not dressed up as Nintendo people.
No, that's true. That's true.
It was a Halloween party, a Halloween concert.
Okay.
Yeah, so everyone's dressed up. Yeah, that was really fun.
I thought it was like I thought maybe this was like a video game cover that you were doing, and that they came up to like sing or something. I didn't know what's going on in here.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like I should just put this on, even though I never actually touched this. I just love this photo, and I don't know what's going on. But there's some old photos of Anomaly.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Vincent.
That's what I do. I find out these old photos. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank for everybody who asked questions specifically, and of course, thank you very much to Anomaly for being here. If you have any questions, yes. Thank you, man. Anomalybeats.com, all the social media and all that, you can find it there. Great music, Métropole 1 et 2, and look out for the next one coming out. Who knows? Well, we got the Chromeo project first, and then the next Anomaly project. And I'm gonna end with I guess it's sort of a question for you. So we're in the year 2020 right now. Where do you plan to be in 14 years? But specifically 14 years.
Okay. I'm still gonna be doing music, making music as Anomaly, but I'll have a food truck.
A food truck. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Will it
sell food? From the food
are you?
truck.
Are you sure it's going to be a truck and not a spaceship?
Why a spaceship? Okay, a spaceship. All right. I'm good. I'm good with the food spaceship. I like that.
A food spaceship called the Romano
Fafar. All right.
So what's the story with this? What's the story with the Romano Fafar?
Huh?
Is there a story behind the Romano Fafar?
Well, it's from a TV show. Do you know it?
I have no idea, but I found it on some Reddit thing, and I was like, "What the hell is this that he's talking about?"
it was a pretty good show, and dans une galaxie près de chez vous, which was like it was pretty funny. A good show.
It was a good show. It was a classic show. So anyway, sorry, that was just a random. I don't know where I thought I was going to go with that one, but but anyway, this is the Roman Fanfare that Anomaly will one day in the year 2034 sell food out of, in addition to playing music.
Wonderful.
So anyway, thank you very much for being on the show. That was the weirdest ending I've ever done.
Thanks so much for having me. Beautiful.
A pleasure, and just a pleasure to see you again, and I mean see you virtually and whatever. And that's it. So have a great night, everybody. Next week we have, let me get this straight. We have DJ Overflow as our guest next week. Should be very, very interesting conversation, I'm sure. And we have a few more guests set up for August, and I heard just today that they're opening it up, events of 250 people in Quebec, which, to be honest, I think is a mistake. But anyway, I've been looking a lot at these numbers, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I hope that we can get out of this situation just as much as the next person, and I hope that the steps being taken are driving us in that direction. So anyway, that's all I want to say about that.
Well said.
Yeah, but so thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll hopefully see you next week. Have a good night.